will call this meeting to order. Today is Tuesday, April 22nd, and this is the regular meeting for the Putnam County Board of Commissioners. If we can ask Chaplain Ted Stackpole to please come forward for the invocation, and the Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Commissioner Alexander. Please rise if you're able to do so.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we pause at the beginning of this meeting to acknowledge you, our Creator, our Sustainer, and the source of all wisdom. We thank you for the privilege of serving this community, and we ask for your guidance and grace over the decisions made here today. Lord, we lift up our leaders, grant them clarity of mind, unity of purpose, and hearts grounded in compassion and integrity. May their work reflect justice, humility, and a sincere desire to seek the good of all people in Putnam County. Today especially we remember and pray for the most vulnerable among us, our children. April is National Child Abuse Prevention Month, and we grieve that there are little ones in our midst who face harm. Instead of safety, fear instead of peace, pain instead of love. We ask you, God of mercy, to protect them, strengthen the hands of those who care for them, parents, teachers, social workers, and foster families. Equip our community to be vigilant, courageous, and committed to creating a safe, nurturing world where every child can grow and thrive. Let our policies, our service, and our hearts reflect a deep commitment to protecting children and honoring their dignity. Let your justice roll on like a river and your righteousness like a never-failing stream. May your peace rest on this room, and may your presence guide every word spoken and every decision made. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Good morning, everyone. Please join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We'll go right into our approval of the minutes.
Madam Chair, I make a motion we approve the minutes for March 25th as stated in our packet.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion passes. We'll go right into presentation with reading over the proclamation by Commissioner Alexander for the SMA Healthcare Mental Health Awareness Month. So if you guys want to come forward. Just come up to the podium.
Good morning, guys. Thank you for joining us. As most of you know, I visit with this commission or this committee once or twice a month, and it's really been eye-opening to me to learn about the people that are out supporting our folks with mental health issues, our homeless folks, and it's something I've never really been exposed to, and it's been touching, and I appreciate everything you guys do. With that being said, I'd like to proceed with the proclamation regarding our group. Putnam County Proclamation Number 2025-026. A proclamation to recognize May 2025 as Putnam County Mental Health Awareness Month. Whereas mental health is a part of overall health, whereas mental health sustains an individual's thought processes, relationships, productivity, and ability to adapt to change. And whereas the consequences of not addressing mental health and psychosocial development for children and adolescents extend to adulthood and limit opportunities for leading fulfilling lives. And whereas increased empathetic responses reduces the stigma of those incarcerated and struggling with mental illness, who should be given the opportunity of restorative rather than punitive treatment. Whereas, through public education and civic activities, Putnam County remains engaged in the promise to address the challenges facing people with mental illness, and whereas Mental Health Awareness Month is an opportunity to increase public understanding of the importance of mental health and to promote the identification and treatment of mental health. And whereas community understanding and available supports and services can greatly impact a person's ability to handle their stress and struggle and move forward. And whereas promoting mental health and wellness leads to a higher overall productivity, better educational outcomes, lower crime rates, stronger economies, lower health care costs, improved family life, improved quality of life, and increased lifespan. And whereas each business, school, government agency, healthcare provider, faith-based organization, nonprofit agency, and citizen shares accountability for the community's mental health needs, has a responsibility to promote mental wellness and support prevention efforts. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the Putnam County Board of County Commissioners proclaims the month of May 2025 as Mental Health Awareness Month. Done, ordered, and adopted this 22nd day of April 2025.
Very nice. Madam Chair, I move to approve the proclamation.
Second?
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 All right. Yay. Y'all are welcome to come up with your picture.
Yep.
So you do that one, you do yours too. I forgot to get that.
I'll just pass that on to him.
This young lady helped my mental health already. She showed me something on my phone that'll work. Everybody in? Pluck it in.
Nancy, you want to say a few words? Sandy, I'm sorry, Sandy, you want to say something? Okay, all right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Absolutely. Next, we have Proclamation 2025-027, St. Johns River Water Management District Water Conservation Month.
Thank you. We have Putnam County Proclamation 2025-027. Whereas water is a basic and essential need of every living creature, whereas the state of Florida, Water Management District, and Putnam County are working together to increase awareness about the importance of water conservation, and whereas Putnam County, the state of Florida, has designated April typically a dry month when water demands are most acute, as Florida's Water Conservation Month, to educate citizens about how they can help save Florida's precious water resources. Whereas Putnam County has always encouraged and supported water conservation through various educational programs and special events, whereas every business, industry, school, and citizen can make a difference when it comes to conserving water. Whereas every business, industry, school, and citizen can help by saving water, thus promote healthy economy and community. Whereas Putnam County will encourage citizens and businesses to focus on evaluating their irrigation systems for potential efficiencies and enhancements. Now, therefore, let it be resolved by the virtue of the authority invested in me as a commissioner of the Board of Putnam County Commissioners, do hereby proclaim the month of April as Water Conservation Month. Putnam County, Florida is calling upon each citizen and business to help protect our precious resources by practicing water-saving methods, becoming more aware of the need to save water. For this, the 27th year of Water Conservation Month, there will be a special focus on irrigation system evaluations. Done, ordered, and adopted this 22nd day of April, 2025.
Madam Chair, I move to approve this proclamation.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 All right, motion passes. Bill, would you like to speak before we do a picture?
Sure, just real quick. Good morning, Chair, Council. Thank you for letting me celebrate your Water Conservation Month for April. I've done a lot of these all over the 18 counties that the district covers. And I start feeling like Chicken Little. The sky's falling, the sky's falling. We're running out of water, we're running out of water. But I think all of us have seen that after COVID, population in Florida has exploded. And along with population comes building houses, building commercial businesses, which puts a major strain on the aquifer, which we get all our clean drinking water from. We haven't just sat around doing nothing. Reclaimed water has drastically increased, which helps out a lot. Most of the builders will put water efficient appliances in all the new homes. That helps out a lot. We can narrow it down now to one major thing, irrigation. 50 to 60% of our fresh water we use for water in the plants, water in our yards. And it's just, when you hear those numbers, it's kind of crazy. So that's where we're putting our focus now. Now, when we start talking about irrigation, it's kind of hard because government can't do this for us anymore. I mean, we could do reclaimed water, you could build things, but government can't do this. This has to come from all of us. It has to come from neighbor to neighbor. Going over, and when you see, we've all seen it, where your sprinkler head shoots straight up in the air as you're driving to work, or you're watering the street, or you're watering every day. That's where we have to go talk to our neighbor. Not mean or anything, just, hey, did you know this? Because I don't know about you, but when I come home from work, the last thing I'm thinking about is, oh, wonder what my irrigation setting's set at. Do I have any broken head? No, it's not like that. You know, everybody's tired. Everybody's got lives to run. So helping each other, either helping them fix it, helping them reset your tones or your irrigation sensors. The last thing is we can beat this, but we have to work together, and I think that's what Putnam does best. Neighbor helping neighbor. That's how we win this fight. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Council.
Thank you. Commissioner Harvey, you recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Do want to say, years ago, I didn't think much of water conservation until my son-in-law took me down to a trade show, a conservationist trade show down in Orlando, and turned me on to drip irrigation.
Yes.
I mean, I have all the sprinkler heads that I can blow all this water out. But it's amazing that little drip irrigation on a single plant will do for it. And the less water that we actually spend. The lakes in West Putnam right now are in terrible shape. I mean, I could use actually 8 feet of water in my lake to get it to where it's normal. And people go, 8 feet of water? Yeah,
Right.
that's how bad they are. So conservation in rural Florida, that's an easy thing because we all know, we all live on wells. We're not going to let the water hose run because we hear that water pump running. We go, something's running out there or they got a broken pipe. We know that. And we also don't have 4 inches of St. Augustine grass or other grass mandated by HOAs to have to do this. We know water conservation. And I just know that sometimes on a regional effort, rural Florida takes it on the chin for other areas. And we all need to be working together because one day you're going to turn that faucet on and water might not be there. And that's what you want most importantly. So I appreciate your efforts. And Madam Chair, thank you for that opportunity to talk about that.
Absolutely. Thank you, Bill. Would you like to come up and get a picture?
Yes, ma'am.
Someone can come on, well, you should be in the middle, but if someone could come on this side. All right, going into Employee of the Month, excuse me, Lori Parker.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We're here to recognize Employee of the Month, and for the second quarter, Employee of the Month is Briar Tilton. As you know, Briar is the budgeting specialist, and he's done a phenomenal job since he was hired, and Julian's going to say a few words. Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. And thank you again for giving us an opportunity to highlight some of our best employees. Briar was selected Employee of the Month, and in his nomination, it goes on and on about how he goes above and beyond. So he does all the stuff budget related, but he's the first one to go, hey, what do you need help with? When we activated the EOC, he keeps all the dollars together and where the budget is, but he also is the first one to go, hey, I'll help in the kitchen, or I'll wash dishes, or it doesn't matter what it really is. When there's a need and if he can help, he's the first one to jump in and say, I want to do it. He's also the calmest of the budget department, which comprises of me and Briar. So he's the one that's always even-keeled and very calm and very patient with all the end users as they work through trying to figure out their budgets through development, as well as all year long as we run into, hey, the money's in the wrong spot, and what do I do? And a lot of times those end departments are panicked when that call comes in. And Briar's the calm voice that goes, here's how we're going to get it done, and he always finds a way to get them there. So it is my honor and pleasure to recommend or honor Briar Tilton this morning as Employee of the Month.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. I guess I can speak real quick, but Doug's and Julianne and JR, they all have great strengths that I can work towards and see. I'm extremely grateful for Miss Julianne. She's like a wonderful boss. She's an excellent role model, and then she's there for me just to listen to me talk, or if I have weaknesses, I feel like she helps me strengthen those. So, and then I'm super grateful for my parents for helping me all the years and pushing me to be better. And then lastly, I think my favorite thing about working at the county is the people. Honestly, I think work is kind of work, but here the people make it feel like a home. I was thinking about listing off names, but I'll be listing names for an hour. But everywhere from Public Works to the procurement department to HR to my friends at the front desk, everybody's super nice, and I'm so grateful for those friends. So
Very
thank you.
good. Thank you, Briar.
Who taught you how to cook?
You did.
All right, Ms.
Okay.
Lori Parker, Employee of the Quarter.
The Employee of the Quarter is, if she could come up, Brooke, she's on her way up. Brooke Swart, she is Employee of the Quarter for first quarter. And with this, she gets her certificate and a check for $500.
Woohoo.
All right.
Here you go, Brooke. James, did you
Now we know who did
want to say
finally.
something? You're
Of course
welcome.
I want to say something. I'll
I
say
know.
this. We was here a couple of weeks ago, and everything I said then holds true today. So all I can say is you're welcome. We are proud of her, very much so. She's done a lot since the last meeting. We have launched several things. One in particular is she's worked with the fire rescue for hydrants, the new hydrant map and checks and verification and stuff like that. So that's something that's been published and out now. So we are very proud of her. But thank you for all that you do. I'm kidding. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Brooke, are you buying lunch today? You're not going to make it.
Are there any speaker cards, Miss Ashley? Before we go into our planning and development impact fee study presentation, I'm going to take a point of privilege and have a few comments regarding impact fee study beforehand. Ashley, I'll take all the cards that you have, please. So we'll call on Mr. Woodward to come up and speak. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. With the chair's permission, I would prefer to defer my comments until after the presentation.
Absolutely. I just didn't want anybody to not have a chance, but if you want to do it afterwards, that's not a problem.
I might be able to comment more intelligently after I've heard
Sure,
the presentation.
no problem. All right. Is
Thank
that
you,
the
ma'am.
same for you, Mr. Minor? Would you like to wait until after? All right. So we'll make sure you do that. Steve Miller. He has some handouts here.
Thanks, Commissioners, and thanks for having me up here. My name's Steve Miller. I'm the president of an organization called Save Rodman Reservoir. You guys are all familiar with Rodman. You know, it can be a contentious issue at times, and it's kind of quite fitting that it's Water Conservation Day, and we have the Water Management District rep here. And, you know, I don't know if you guys know this or not. Probably all of you do. Back in 2015, the city of Jacksonville, Jacksport, Jack's Chamber of Commerce, and the Riverkeeper got together and decided it was time for Rodman Dam to go without reaching out to anybody local. The only way everybody found out about it was when it hit the news in Jacksonville. Right now, there's a similar situation with the Florida Senate. There is a proposal by Jason Broder, who's the Seminole County representative, there's an appropriation of $6.25 million for ordering DEP to come up with a plan to do the partial restoration for, excuse me, I get nervous. You know, I can do this all day long
You're doing great.
with music in the background, but standing in front of Mike kind of get a little squirrely. So anyway, the money is allocated to FDEP for coming up with a plan to implement the partial restoration, with work starting in 2026 and completed by 2035. Several issues, you know, I'll start off on one thing that really irritates me more than anything, is when I found out about this and I started calling around to local representatives, state level, county level, city level, nobody knew anything about it. You know, and it's the same tactic that went on the last time. To me, that's the bigger concern. You got people who are outside the district, who don't live here, who don't realize what Rodman means to the area, dictating what's going to happen. And without any local outreach, it's concerning. And so, if you look at Rodman, I gave you guys a letter that I wrote to the local representatives highlighting some of the things. If you look at the explosive growth that was referenced, and you look at the watershed and the impacts, every water quality issue the state of Florida has is man-made. The more people there are, the more issues you're going to have. Rodman is the only filter in the whole Ocklawaha Basin that has a proven track record of nutrient reduction. They hold a study up that was done by John Henriksen that says that there will be nutrient load increases to the St. Johns River, and those can be offset by mitigation in other places. The problem with that is there's no defined offsets for mitigation and nutrient load reductions anywhere in any of the proposals to remove the dam. The other side of that is if you look at the technical data, the baseline for nutrient load calculations were based on a background level that is a standard level, not actually what's coming from Silver Springs, which is 3 to 4 times higher than that nutrient load level. And I've been watching it for 5 or 6 years now. So you got several issues. We don't, Rodman has been identified by St. Johns River Water Management District for potentially providing 30 million gallons a day if needed for municipal reasons, purposes down the road. So why would you want to do two things? Take out a potential water source, take out the only filter, and add nutrient loads to the St. Johns River, which would be directly across the river from Palatka, that every year you can read in the paper about the algae blooms. All you're doing is providing more food. It makes absolutely no sense. I would like to see this commission reach out to Senator Broder, reach out to all the local representatives, and let the state know that we're not going to take this being dictated what goes on in our county by people from other places. And we, like I say, there's two issues. One, not including any local representation when you're doing that. And second is water quality issues, water quantity issues. I think they're all interrelated, and I think it's something that you guys need to address with the state to make sure that this funding does not go through.
Thank you. Commissioner Harvey, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In all of fairness and disclosure, I am the executive director of Save Rodman. Cannot be a board member due to the Ethics Commission, when I first started here, made sure that that would not be happening. I do want to talk about something that Mr. Miller just said. Water quality is very important to us. And I just mentioned the lakes in western Putnam County. If you're in Grandin at the Clay Ranch, you're 99 feet above sea level. When you get to my house, you're around 55 feet above sea level. When you get to Rodman or Lake Ocklawaha, you're 19 feet above sea level. 21 billion gallons of fresh water, 19 feet above sea level. St. Johns River is sea level, period. It moves very slowly going north. I took a reporter out there, Roger Weeder with Channel 12 News one time, and I said, Roger, I'll drink out of the spillway or out of the lake right now if you promise to drink off the Jacksonville Landing. And he said, that's not the same water. And I said, yeah, it is, because it goes north in the St. Johns and goes out into the Atlantic Ocean. So we might have to treat it a little bit. You're going to have to treat it a lot. And it is the same water. And that's what people don't realize. Mr. Underwood, Cecil Underwood's son, Tommy Underwood, actually has done studies with water management showing them the data that when the drawdown happens, what happens to the lakes in West Putnam and eastern Alachua County. So it's very important that this watershed remains intact. Yeah, none of us would want to dig a ditch across Florida ever again. That was an idea that started to move commerce or for war times or whatever the story was at that moment. But truly, we do not need saltwater intrusion in our freshwater areas. And this is a prime example. And I'll finish up my statement with this. We do have people in Tallahassee watching this right now. Truly, I've been up there about this issue. But you're right. It's time for this thing called Lake Ocklawaha to be put to bed once and for all. And let us make the decision of what we want to do. Not some senator from Kissimmee area who is reliant on other, maybe a term limited out to move on to a second job. I don't know what he's up to. But I'm just going to say this. It's time for our citizens to make that decision, not somebody to make it for us. And that failed with Jacksonville, and it's going to fail again, I hope. So thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I agree, and, you know, some outreach to Marion County from you guys to kind of coordinate this. I don't know how the political atmosphere is there concerning Rodman, and I know there's a lot of misinformation and how do you say it? It's not exactly untrue, but, you know, when you take a part of a paragraph and a part of another paragraph and make it sound like it's something and it's not, that's what we face all the time in dealing with trying to keep the true situation concerning water in Rodman.
Thank you. Commissioner Alexander, you're recognized.
Yes, sir. That term you're referring to, they use it in washing machines too. It's called a spin. But speaking from personal experience, when you were referring to the nutrient levels in the river, I genuinely have some concerns about that. I live on Forester Point, East Palatka, and the eelgrass reduction in my area after the hurricane, I believe it was 2017, due to the purge. I mean, there's multiple facets of why they say it occurred, but there is no eelgrass, where at one time we had hundreds of yards of eelgrass off of my dock. And I have true concerns regarding the nutrient discharge and what effect that may have on the water quality of the river and the effect. I've been working with the Mighty River Recovery Team, and they're partnered with the Riverkeeper, but I think that if we employed a biological study to assess what the nutrient discharge would do to trying to increase or resurrect these eelgrass beds, we may find some common ground there, because, you know, now is definitely not the time to add any additional nutrient discharge to the river, in my opinion. Not that I'm a biologist, but I do live on the river and I understand what the effects are. So that might be something you want to engage as well.
Commissioner, and I appreciate that. And, you know, I think there are a lot of goals that we do have in common with the Riverkeeper.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, water quality, as I said, is strictly all our issues are man-made.
Yep.
And we're going to, you know, there's potential for 3.5 million more people living in just the St. Johns River water management territory in the next 25 years. If you don't think that's going to have an impact on the water quality,
Well, yeah, we have the opportunity to supply that water from our pre-existing reservoir that
Exactly.
we're debating
And we're
on
spending-
destroying versus, you know, withdrawing that from the aquifer. So I think there's some common ground there that we can find, you know, and it doesn't necessarily involve removing the dam. So maybe we should approach it from that angle.
one of the other things that just kind of amazes me is we're spending between state and federal funds billions of dollars building reservoirs statewide to treat water through natural processes. Rodman should be the poster child. I mean, we've got a 50-year record of what happens. So why the same people who sued the state to spend more money to build reservoirs want to tear one out that functions? I just can't find the logic in that. So, and I certainly appreciate you guys listening to me, and I do hope you will take some action and address the state, address all the representatives that you can reach out to, and just tell them it's time we put this thing to bed. I mean, the next action needs to be beyond stopping this funding, is saying what do we have to do to memorialize that Rodman will be there forever.
I want to share with you a little bit. About 3 or 4 years ago, DEP spent $1.8 million out of their operating budget to repair and maintain Rodman. And by doing so, they said that created and confirmed that the repairs were done and the dam is structurally safe. Representative Payne had that done when he was in office, and so I'm very familiar with it. So it doesn't make sense that the legislature would spend an additional funds to tear down something they just put close to $2 million in to keep it and to make it safe. So I think that, you know, one of the things that hopefully the governor won't let that through. If he's truly worried about efficiency and effectiveness, then why would you spend good money after bad, right?
I agree.
So I think that needs to, I mean, bad money after good, I don't know the right way to say it, but you know what I'm saying. And that article you referenced said, it talked about tourism in there, and it said that it would be an economic boom by creating tourism. Well, tourism is already available because you can access the springs through the St. Johns River. You just have to go through the lock. It's not that you can't get there. So I don't understand that tourism could still take place to the tune of, I think there was quoted in the article, $200 million. I'd like to see the data that supports that. I don't know that that's true. And as far as campgrounds, we have Rodman Campground, we have campgrounds south of Rodman that are constantly full. And to your point, most of the people that were commenting on that article or who were quoted were from Marion County, out of county, and there was the study that was done when Representative Payne was in office. 80% of the people that responded to that survey never have been on the Ocklawaha River. They don't live in the area. What they did was they lobbied for people who thinks that the dam needs to be torn down. However, those people have never even been there. That's one of the questions on the study. Have you been there? Are you do you live on the river? Have you been there? And the answer is no. So that study is truly tainted because it has 80% of people who have no interest in it other than they've got the sound bite and they're going to vote on the sound bite. So I think what you guys should do is work with, continue to move forward. If you want to do something to where you're sending collectively a letter to all of your representatives as well, I think that would be very helpful. But particularly the governor's office. The governor needs to know that it's, we just put $2 million, the state just put $2 million practically in this dam. Why would you want to tear it down?
I agree, and I have reached out. The letter that I gave you guys, modified for, I sent one to Senator Broder. It's a little less flattering, probably.
Yeah.
And I sent one to the governor also. And like you said, a lot of the people that voted to remove the dam don't have a clue about it. They haven't read the studies. I might be a nerd. I read studies. I find out stuff I don't know all the time. Google is your best friend when you're reading a study and it talks about eutrophication. What the heck is that? Well, let me look it up.
Right.
So I looked at all these studies, and I went back and looked at them just a couple months ago, and I found out the baseline that they used was off to start with. Mm-hmm. So what is the true nutrient load that's going in the river? And so you're right. It's a big. More people buy into what they hear,
right,
and never investigate to find out what they should know.
Right.
And that's what we face every day with that.
Well, thank you for coming forward and speaking.
Thanks for having me.
Yep, appreciate it.
Y'all have a good day.
Thank you, board, for allowing that to happen. I know it was I took a point of privilege, but I didn't want Mr. Miller to be here all day while we go through the rest of the agenda. All right, now we'll have, planning and development for the impact fee study presentation.
Good morning, Commissioners. Please assist me in welcoming Nilgan Camp and Brian Mance, our consultants for the Putnam County Impact Fee Study. Come on up. Yours is already ready to go.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Nilgan Camp with Benish. I will cover the non-utility fees, and my colleague, Brian Mance, will cover the utility fees.
Okay.
So this presentation starts with a brief background review and then the technical study and next steps. As you know, you are continuing to experience growth. On average, the last 4 years, is that better? Okay. You average about 600 new residential permits, which is all putting pressure on the infrastructure. The county placed their impact fees under moratorium in 2006, so we are treating these fees as new fees, basically. Hasn't been being used or charged for a long time. And aside from the utility fees, there's an interest in developing fees in about 5 service areas, and that's what I'll cover. Impact fees, by definition, are a one-time capital charge to new development. They cover the cost of new capital facilities. So they can only be used for additional capital, not for maintenance or resurfacing, restructuring, and so forth. But they do free up general tax dollars for those programs, so they indirectly help them. They help implement the capital improvement plan. And their main goal is to maintain the level of service, and they calculate cost of growth, and they are most needed when there are high growth levels and limited alternative funding. In Florida, impact fees were governed by case law since 1980s, And it's two key components are covered under dual rational nexus, which says that there has to be a study demonstrating the fees are proportionate to the need created by new development, and that the fee payer receives a benefit, which is achieved through benefit districts when needed, as well as a list of capacity adding projects, either in the CIP or in a master plan, that shows that why you need the fees and what will be funded with the fees. And then in 2006, we had the Impact Fee Act passed. It had several changes since then. Some of its key requirements are that the fees be based on most recent and localized data. There's a minimum of 90-day notice requirement after adoption before they become effective. If there's a challenge to the fee, now the government has the burden of proof. It used to be the other way around. In 2021, we had House Bill 337 passed. This applies only to existing fees, so this doesn't apply to the fees that we are discussing today. But it is important for you to know, because once you set the fees, you will have a limit how much you can increase them going forward. So it basically says fees cannot be increased more than 50%, and those increases has to be phased over up to 4 years. There's an exception clause that requires demonstrating extraordinary circumstances, and the increase has to be approved by 2/3 of the governing body. So again, this doesn't apply right now, but it's something to keep in mind. And then we had a House Bill 479 passed last year. It requires the interlocal agreement if both the cities and counties are collecting for transportation impacts in a jurisdiction. And then studies need to be completed and adopted in 12 months, and they need to use data available within the past 4 years. In terms of uses of impact fees, again, they are for capacity addition. So, for example, some examples on transportation, these fees are only for roadways classified and collectors and above. They are not for neighborhood local streets. And it could be new roads, lane additions, intersection improvements, dirt to pave on collectors and above, right-of-way purchase, roundabouts, new traffic signals if they improve the flow of traffic. We are measuring level of service for transportation in terms of speed of travel. So any improvement on collectors and above that improves that speed and reduces congestion can be found with impact fees. In other areas, for example, fires, rescue, could be new stations, expansion of existing stations, land purchase, new, again, additional vehicles, equipment, not replacement, but additional. Law enforcement inventory is limited to vehicles, so that same type of thing, new additional vehicles. Government buildings, again, new buildings, expansion of existing buildings, land, and similarly for parks, it could be parkland and new additional recreational facilities. Technical study is using a consumption-based methodology, which is very common in Florida. It charges new growth for the value of the infrastructure that is consuming, and the way it's calculated, it is basically guarantees that the new development is not being charged for existing deficiencies, which is one of the legal requirements. So basic impact fee formula looks at cost to add capacity. That's really the value of your capital inventory. And then it looks at how the county is funding capacity projects. To the extent that you are using taxes, a portion will come from future development. So that amount is subtracted so that we are not charging new development once through the fee and once through the tax. And then that net cost gets multiplied by demand, which is measured in terms of travel for transportation and population for the other fees. This is just showing you the sample, basically a summary of the fees for several sample land uses. And you can kind of see for single family, it's about $7,700 in total, and the larger two fees are the roads and government buildings. And then this slide provides the same information for single family, adding the water and wastewater. So you can see in total, it's almost like $16,000, and most of that is under wastewater and transportation. Again, I'll go through each of these service areas. And in each one, you'll see a pattern. We start with the inventory, level of service, cost, credit, demand, and the calculated fee. So fire rescue, the inventory includes 14 stations owned by the county. It's about 65,000 square feet of building space, almost 50 acres of land, as well as vehicles and equipment. In all the cost estimates for buildings and land, we review anything that county has built or has estimates for going forward. We supplemented that information with the insurance values of existing buildings as well as data from other jurisdictions. In the case of land, again, anything that county bought or has appraisals, estimates for was considered. And then we also review all vacant land sales from the property appraiser database of similar size parcels throughout the county. So with that, the building costs range from, for fire rescue, $125 per square foot to $350 per square foot, depending on type of building, and the land was estimated at $30,000 per acre. As far as level of service, for impact fee purposes, we are looking at it as a population per station, so it's about 5,000 people that each station is handling. Obviously, their operational level of service is more response time, but just for capital purposes, we are looking at population per station. So the total capital asset value with buildings, land, vehicle, and equipment is about $52 million. That divided by the population gives us a value of $740 almost. And that represents the investment community has made into fire rescue infrastructure up to this point. So that's our starting point to charge the new development. We then subtract a credit, and in your case, there were no expansion projects within the, what we typically do for the credit component, we look at how you funded capacity projects past 5 years and what's programmed in the CIP. We didn't have any in that time period, so then we did use a 20% credit discount based on what we observe in other jurisdictions, just to give you the flexibility to be able to use non-impact fee funding going forward. So that results in a net cost of about $590 per resident. And then that figure multiplied by residents per unit give us the final fee. So it's about $920 for single family per dwelling unit. Non-residentials are mostly per 1,000 square foot, and you can kind of see some examples. And then this slide and next slide provides comparison to other jurisdictions. So in these, we wanted to show you the study date. That's pretty much the first row. Just so you know how old their studies are, as well as the assessed portion, which is either a policy decision or an artificial cap because of that new legislation where they cannot increase more than 50%. So this group of jurisdictions are ranging anywhere from $230 to about $1,200 per home for single family, and these two are about $670 to $780. Law enforcement, the inventory includes vehicles and equipment, and the buildings and land are included as part of general government buildings. So this law enforcement impact fee is strictly vehicle-based, real equipment. Level of service measured in terms of officers per residence, which is about 2.4. And then per officer, per person, that value divided by population gives us $155 per person, which again represents the investment up to this point. There was some general fund utilized for vehicles, so that generated a credit. So then the cost minus credit results in about $100 to $115 per person. And those figures multiplied by residents per unit gives us a fee. It's about almost $150 per single family home. So in this comparison, we just wanted to find other counties that their law enforcement is strictly vehicle-based. So we have 2 counties like that, and there are, I'm sure, others, but those are the 2 that we are aware of. So theirs is ranging from $155 to $180 per home. Government buildings, They provide general government services, court services, law enforcement, correctional are included here as well. So it's altogether 350,000 square feet, 60 acres of land, and the building values range from $125 per square foot to $450 for the jail buildings, and land was estimated at $20,000 per acre. Again, level of service is measured in terms of square foot per resident, which is almost 5 square feet. And again, anytime we use the existing level of service for the calculations, we are making the assumption that county will continue to provide that going forward. So the total asset value is about $104 million, divided by population gives us a value of about $1,470, again representing the investment the community has made up to this point. There were both contributions from general fund as well as there is an outstanding debt service related to the jail. So those generate a credit. So the net cost after that credit ranges from $815 to $960. Those multiplied by residents per unit results in a fee of about $1,270 for single family, and then again various fees for non-residential. So in this example, just to make it the comparison apples to apples, we added government buildings, law, and jail, everything together, and same thing for the other jurisdictions, just because different jurisdictions configure their fees differently. So here, this is your 1,400 is both the law enforcement vehicle plus the government buildings. That compares to, in this slide, anywhere from 610 to about 1,600 in other jurisdictions, as well as, and then in this one about 500 to 1,900. Parks and Recreation. So again, that's the investment the community made, but you do have an adopted level of standard in the case of parks, which is 2 acres, and we use the lower of the two because if we haven't achieved it, we can't use it, but if there's no intention going forward, which is reflected through the standard, then we cannot charge for it. So we are using the 2 acres. Land value is estimated about $20,000 per acre, and then site development cost another $10,000, so altogether $30,000, which results in a land cost of $60 per resident. In addition to land, there's a value for the recreational facilities, which ends up about $190 per resident. So altogether, it's about $250 per resident cost. Again, here we didn't have any expansion projects within the time frame that we reviewed, so we did use the 20% based on other jurisdictions. So that resulted in a net cost of $200. And park impact fees are charged only to residential land uses, so we are using, again, residents per unit for different residential categories. So that fee range is anywhere from $210 to about $445. So compared to the other jurisdictions, that single-family home of $445 is basically within the range of other jurisdictions, which are here ranging anywhere from $312 to about $2,500 almost. So transportation fees are calculated a little differently, so I just kind of want to show you the formula real quick. We start with how much 1 lane mile is costing, and then how much capacity is carrying. So those two divided, and we are looking at, and I'll talk about this, both county and state roads improvements. So that cost divided by capacity gives us about $345 value per vehicle miles of capacity. That's basically to say every time we add a car to the roadway system, for them to travel is costing that infrastructure $345, sort of a unit cost. An average home generates 32 vehicle miles daily travel, so those two multiply gives us the total cost of $11,000 and then we subtract the credit, other revenue sources, and then net fee ends up being about $4,900. So this is what you have here is what we call a network-wide fee. So it includes all roads that are collectors and above, city, county, state. There are jurisdictions who charge only for county roads, but there are more jurisdictions, more common, that collects for all of them, and partially because you set the standard, you prioritize the projects to some level, and state is not in the impact fee business, so you can't do either way. Projects built with these revenues should add capacity to those type of roads. So in the case of state roads, some jurisdictions use the impact fees for local match, or they may improve a road that's parallel to a state road, which helps that state road as well, or they may just advance some right away. So those are some examples. Demand for transportation is measured in terms of 3 variables: how many trips each land use generates daily, how long those trips are, and how many of them are new trips because of that land use. So we don't charge for pass-by trips. And the data sources are national data as well as Florida studies and the travel demand model. On the cost side, this is not just in transportation, in all your fees. This chart kind of shows the cost trends, and we had that 05-06 boom, and then we went into the Great Recession, costs went down, and then they started to increase again, but then since the pandemic, that level of increase heightened. So you can kind of see that toward the end of this chart. So in the case of county costs, all your improvements basically were limited to dirt to pave roads, so that's what we use because that's what you are planning to build. On the state improvements, again, we looked at any state projects in the county and then supplemented that with other jurisdictions. So that resulted in a construction cost of about $5 million per lane mile, which means if it's a 1 mile of road with 2 lanes, it's $10 million. And then with all the other variables that go to building a cost, the design right away and CEI, the total cost ends up being about $7 million per lane mile. We then looked at how much capacity each type of road generates and blended them by their project, their lane miles. So that resulted in a combined cost per capacity of $345. On the credit side, again, this is just like the cost, it includes all revenue sources. So really primary contributions are coming from state investment in the county, so that's the bulk of it. There's about $24 million, 23.5 is coming from state on an annual basis. One thing we'd like to mention, when we do transportation impact fees, the question comes up that they have a dedicated revenue source, why the fuel taxes are not enough. And fuel taxes are on a per gallon basis, and the state taxes are indexed, but local taxes are not allowed to be indexed. All other revenue sources are indexed, sales tax and so on. So between inability to index and the fuel efficiency, a penny in mid-90s is only worth maybe half its value, and that's why we are seeing more and more fuel tax revenues being only enough for potentially maintenance, really not leaving much for capacity projects. So overall, the single-family fee for all roads ends up being about $4,900 per unit, and this compares it to this slide and next slide compares it to other jurisdictions. Clay County has multiple fees ranging from $800 to about $7,000, and then this group of counties ranging anywhere from $1,600 to about $10,000 or so. We then also look at the need to have the benefit districts for all fees, and again, this is to demonstrate that fee payer receives the benefit. In the case of fire, law, and government buildings, the services are county-wide. Fire stations help each other, the trucks go, they don't necessarily are limited to their immediate area. Same thing with the police vehicles. And then the government buildings, your court and everything serves the entire county. So those in those cases, the benefit district is countywide. For transportation and parks that tend to be more localized, we reviewed any natural barriers, developable area sizes. We looked at, in the case of transportation, travel from one district to other or where people are traveling. And then we looked at where your improvements are, and in the case of parks, your inventory. And we proposed to have 2 districts basically divided by the river. We don't want to have too many districts if we don't need to, because then the pools of money become so small that it's hard to build projects. But we do want to demonstrate benefit. So again, this is just showing you the summary of the fees. So non-utility fees amounting about $7,700. The 2 largest ones are government buildings and roads. And then when we add the utilities, it's about $16,000. And again, the highest ones are transportation, wastewater, followed by water. We then looked at the revenue projections for that, basically reviewed your residential permitting and did a range, low end based on last 2 years of permitting, high end based on past 5 years. So with these, we think that, again, we broke it down by area, but the county could generate 1.7 to 6 million annually, depending on the permitting levels and also depending on which fee. So before I turn it over to Brian, maybe I'll stop here, answer any questions you may have, or if you like, he can go through and however you'd like.
All right. Commissioner Harvey, you recognized.
Well, first, Madam Chair, thank you, but I do want to get some direction from you on how you want to proceed. There's 200 and some odd pages here, and I can probably have 5 questions per page, but I'm not going to go there today. So I realize this is a first time out of the box, if you will. So, but I have one question, and then I'll let our chair lady continue the meeting. Page 21, because I got a call this morning from our sheriff about a different item, and I said I was expecting your call once you saw the impact fee, and so we were talking about it. But what kind of glares to me is that we're using 63,000 residents. When you started your presentation, you went 76,000 residents. And I saw some of that during your presentation, different numbers from years back. And I guess, because it shows that we're at 2.04 officers per 1,000. Well, we know that we're spread out so big that it's not just about per 1,000, it's about land mass too. So I don't know why you use 63,000 when our current number is 76 and you started off with 76.
Law enforcement service area is unincorporated county only. The cities have their own.
Not in this county. I mean, we all help each other. So
No, they do. And then, exactly, you all help, but their primary focus is unincorporated county or primary responsibility. That's why.
Okay.
And also
That does make sense. It makes sense now, but I'm a little confused.
Yeah, because
but I'm not going to ask any more because there's going to be a lot.
Well,
so.
the city of Palatka has 10,000,
Sure.
and they do their own impact fee, so.
And Interlaken and Crescent.
Right.
Well, Crescent.
Not Crescent City.
No, yeah.
All right, any other questions from the dais? All right, let me see, I have a couple things here. On the very beginning, when, I think it's your third slide in, where it says background purpose, and we talked about, it says average 600 residential permits per year for the past 4 years. That's simply the county permits?
that includes the city too.
That's what my question was. I thought it
Yes.
must. Okay, that makes sense. And then on legal requirements, you have HB 479, requires interlocal agreements by October 1st, 2025 between cities and counties if both charging for transportation impacts. So the city of Palatka does already have impact fees, and I believe that includes transportation. So you're saying that that's required, we would have to.
So if the county decides to charge in the city also, then the fees need to be coordinated that they are not double charging.
Sure.
But if the county only charges unincorporated county or other cities that doesn't have it, then you don't have a conflict.
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
my book is not right with your book. My page 3 is not your page.
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm on page 63.
Okay, because mine starts differently. Okay, there we are. I was
Okay.
trying to find that.
Okay.
I know, I need them too.
Well, no, I'm way down. Okay, all right.
See, I think I had one more.
Thank you.
And then on your countywide residential permitting, I don't know what slide number it is, but it was our page 78. You have from 21 to 24, 580 per year for year 2022?
23 to 24, 160.
160, okay. So are you including 2024 year numbers in both of those?
No, just on the high end,
Okay,
just on the 5-year average.
okay. All right, those are my questions. I just had some clarity, needed some clarity. Anybody else?
Yes, ma'am, I have a
Oh,
question.
go ahead, Commissioner Alexander.
So primarily, this involves the unincorporated areas of Putnam County, whereas when we would have a development that would share resources between the county and the city, we have to establish an interlocal agreement by October of 2025?
Only if both the county and the city is collecting in the city transportation impact fees. So for example, if you implement your fee, so technically, if the city didn't have the fee, you would collect automatically countywide. I mean, this fee is calculated countywide
But
basis.
the city does have those fees.
City, so then that's the decision. If you would like to collect in the city, then there has to be some agreement between you and the city. What portion of the fee will go to them? What portion of the fee will be staying with the county? And the main purpose is so that there's no double charging. If they are charging for full impact and then we add on top of it the county, there's double charging. So I think that was the primary goal of that bill.
So
And
an
is that-
example of that would be, an example of that would be if the city has permitted a development to go within the city boundaries, however, they're using a county road to access the property. Was that an example?
Yes, that's an example. So in the city, you have county roads, state roads.
Correct.
And that's the thing about transportation. It's a very integrated system. It's very hard to draw a boundary and be done with it, not like other service areas. So then who collects for that? Who makes the improvement? All those.
And is it mandated that this needs to be established by October of 2025?
Yes. If you are going to charge in the city.
So are there, I would assume there are other municipalities and counties that we can mirror their agreements or have something structured?
Yes,
Because that's a pretty
we can.
short time frame to work that out, considering we meet twice a month
Correct.
and involve and collaborate with our city commissioners. So this is going to be a challenge.
Right.
All right, so you said you have somebody else to come up?
Yes.
Okay. You got on your pages
Yeah,
now?
I found it now. Thank you.
Good, you'll find us.
Okay, now we're going back.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I thought we were going to go to the next steps. Are we going to do this presentation and then discuss the next steps? Okay, all right. We will have to come back to next steps, yes. Go ahead.
Good morning,
Good morning.
commissioners, members of the public, staff. My name is Brian Mance. I'm with GovRates, and I'm here to present the results of the water and wastewater impact fee study. So as Negan touched on, to provide a little bit of background on impact fees, they do support a policy of growth paying for growth. They do help to, especially for water and wastewater impact fees, they help to reduce the need for monthly user rate increases. They are very common in the utility industry. They're used to pay for either growth-related capital projects or growth-related debt service. And as Negan mentioned in her presentation, there are dual rational nexus requirements established through case law, where the fees have to relate to the capital expenditures for growth, and they have to be proportionate to the benefit received. As far as the water and wastewater impact fee calculation methodology, we considered the cost of existing capacity allocable to serve growth. No grant-funded, contributed, or, quote, cost-free infrastructure was included in the calculations. We also considered the costs reflected in the most recent multi-year capital improvement program. The level of service standards for one equivalent residential connection, which would be like your smallest meter size, was used 300 gallons per day for water and 240 gallons per day for wastewater. The water level of service standard is consistent with what's in the county's Comprehensive Plan 2045. So the proposed water and wastewater impact fees per equivalent residential connection are $2,605 for water and $5,455, total $8,060. One thing that we use as a reasonable check is the calculated cost per gallon, which as you can see is $8.68 and for water and per gallon. That's basically the fee divided by the level of service. And for wastewater, it's $22.73. The cost of wastewater treatment capacity has increased dramatically over the past few years. Other utilities are having to spend over $40 per gallon for wastewater treatment capacity. The reason why our calculated fee is $22.73 is that we're assuming that, consistent with history, the county will receive a tremendous amount of grant funding for this infrastructure. We've assumed 75%. As far as the impact fee schedule, we're proposing a dual approach where the fee is charged either by the estimated flow of the development times the cost per gallon of capacity, or based on the meter size. With higher meter sizes, paying a higher impact fee. It would be a greater of approach, and we think that would be it's a reasonable two-pronged approach. So as far as the impact fees, how they compare, you can see that they're comparable to those of other utilities. I should say that a lot of times you'll find that impact fees haven't been reviewed for 20 years, and so some of the local governments on the lower end of the comparison may not have reviewed their fees. I can say the trend is we're seeing more, as someone that does a lot of these, we're seeing the calculated fees trend significantly, where we're seeing more fee calculations closer to what the city of Groveland is charging, and they're of course on the right end of the spectrum. And again, a comparison, an impact fee comparison, is not a report card on how well a utility is performing, because there are a lot of reasons why impact fees differ among utilities. And one of the things I just mentioned was that the time elapsed since the last impact fee review, the source of supply, the type or complexity of treatment, historical grant funding of infrastructure, which in the county's case has been significant, administrative policies to charge something lower than what could be supported, level of service standards. All of these different factors cause impact fees among different local governments to be different. And so again, it's not a report card. As far as the potential water and wastewater impact fee revenue, it's going to depend on how quickly there are how quickly the equivalent residential connections connect, but we're estimating that based on the amount of capacity that's recognized, with the county's planning and the level of service standards on how many equivalent residential connections could be supported. We're looking at about $16 million over the life of that could be that the county could collect over the next several years. And that's again assuming 95% utilization of capacity. You never see utilities that are 100% utilized. So our recommendations are to adopt the proposed water and wastewater impact fees. They do support growth, paying for growth. They're based on the most recent and local data. They help to reduce the need for future user rate adjustments. And because of affordability concerns, that's the trend I'm seeing is that more local governments are wanting to increase the impact fees to the maximum amount that could be justified. They do help to reduce the need for financing capital improvements, which means you would be paying lower interest and issuance costs. And again, they can be used to pay for expansion-related debt, allowing user rate revenues to be used for other purposes. And of course, we would recommend that the county would update the impact fees whenever the capital plans, costs, or funding sources change significantly. So that's my presentation.
Are there any questions from the board? Commissioner Harvey, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just talking water and wastewater real quick, the only wastewater plant we have is in East Palatka.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Is these fees based on what we're using now? And let me qualify that. Let's say there's a big development going north on 17 where we don't have a plant, that we might have to build a new plant. Let's say that we have a place in West Putnam that's going to need a wastewater plant that we don't have a plant. The cost of that would be significantly different. Those assessments would be a lot more than the one if we're going to be using it on the current facility that we have, correct?
Right. The current wastewater impact fees assume the expansion of your current wastewater facility.
Okay.
And that's one of the reasons why we're showing a large, a substantial wastewater impact fee, that's $5,000, because that cost of capacity is substantial, even though we are assuming that the county would get 75% external funding or grant funding.
So one follow-up. Would it make sense for us, if we're going to do something like this, to have different districts set up around the county for the potential of future development of a new system? Because that's going to be a standalone, highly costly at that point, I'm sure, because nothing's going down in cost. So, I'm sure 10 years from now, that cost will be more. So probably look at East Palatka as its own district and look at some of the other areas of the county, South Putnam, West Putnam, North Putnam, as getting their own districts for that reason.
Yeah, good. You can certainly have different impact fees. These impact fees are deal with the East Palatka system, but certainly you could have different impact fees for different districts if it makes sense to do so. I mean, you'd have to look at your capital plans, how much external funding you would get through those fees, and whether it would make sense or whether you could support a fee.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Alexander?
No, ma'am, my question was answered.
Are there any questions from staff? All right. So I guess the question that I have is, what's next? So I'm not sure which one of you will be taking that. What's our next steps?
Yeah, that's just the last slide, I think. Just so I don't forget. I know, I can't use that. Yeah, I mean, this one. Thank you. Okay. And the local agreement, I mean, that needs to be done by October 1st only if you are starting to charge in the city by then. So if the fee is first implemented in unincorporated area, and then while city and the county get into an agreement on that, you don't have to have it until you start charging in the city, if that makes sense. So it could be a phased adoption in a way.
So we could do it outside of the
Okay.
unincorporated areas first.
So the next steps are, depending on board input to staff, the preparation of the ordinance, and we have a legal sub who's working on the ordinance, draft ordinance right now, and then would like to submit to the county attorney and so on. And then it's really going to adoption hearing, and that's your normal process of adopting ordinances, if it's 2 hearing or 1 hearing, however you'd like to do. And then the fees become effective 9 days after adoption. That doesn't apply to water and wastewater, the 90-day limit, right? Because,
Right.
yeah.
However, there are some customer notification requirements that through the billing system, all customers have to be notified of the impact of any water and wastewater rate or impact the increase. Any rates, fees, or charges customers have to be notified through the billing process.
And that's again just for utilities.
All right. Commissioner Harvey?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I see your next steps, board input. So now we're going to probably go back and look at this and dissect it and ask our 500 questions that we have to staff and to you and go from there. So I guess my first question is, do we run everything through our staff and then they answer to you? They're going to send it to you first and then you'll send it back, or?
Absolutely. Yeah, we can. That's probably more efficient if we get it one combined and then we can respond and send it all.
And what about our public input? Because I do see some of our partners in the room today, and that's really important to them too, because this is, we didn't have impact fees, or we had them but we never instituted them, and this is something now that growth is coming, and we want to be orderly and we want to be fair about it, and we want to get our partners. So how do we get that input?
So different jurisdictions handle that differently, but you can have a stakeholder presentation, which you can invite, the builders, the Chamber of Commerce, those who are interested. You can do it that way. They can give their input during the work sessions here. I think usually, and some communities set up a group, sort of a impact fee advisory that includes also citizens as well as builders and stakeholders.
And a final question for you. I get the other parts of the implementation part, but in one of your slides you referenced Alachua County and how their rates were pretty much single was 114 and double was 220. They just kind of used an arbitrary rate. Didn't look like they used.
So what is happening is 2 things. Is there are some jurisdictions, they buy down the fees, like St. John's County used to do that. They bought down the non-residential fees with sales tax for a long time. So that's a policy decision. The other one, that arbitrary percentage, is happening because of that 50% limit. You cannot increase any single fee more than 50%. Meanwhile, demand component changes, so the percentage of adoption is no longer the same from one land use to the other. So that's an unintended consequence of something that we are technically not supposed to do with impact fees. Everybody should pay the same percentage. Mm-hmm. But because they put this 50% increase of every single item, so if one fee was going up, over time, like how many people per housing unit changes, how much the travel or demand, like the new trip data comes. So demand component shifts. So it's not like everybody is at the same relation as the last study. So then when you put that 50% cap, that ruins the proportionality, basically.
So my follow-up question on that is real simple. Let's just say, let's pick on the fire department. And let's say that the fee is $1,000 that you're recommending based on your study today. What's the maximum we can go to that we say, we disagree with that 1,000, we don't think that that's the right number? So we're going to have some basis to make that go up, right? So
Yes.
how do we make that
Or down.
or down. Yeah, one or the other.
So down can be a policy decision. You can say we will adopt fire fees at 80%.
Okay.
You can't, to go above what your study shows is you either need to show new data. Basically, there has to be some data that says, okay, we think this rate is too low because you estimated fire station cost too low. Here we have a bid that shows twice that, something like that, you know.
So basically just a square footage justification for something as simple as that, or?
If the square footage was incorrect, for example, we did,
So,
you know.
Yeah, we just have to find a component that would justify the increase based on
Correct.
your study.
Correct.
Okay.
And you reference roads, at so much per mile for one lane. But, roads are different. A flat road is one thing. If you go out to West Putnam where elevations are tremendous, that road is going to be a lot more because of drainage. So there's going to be variations in that. So we need to be very mindful of that and set those rates where it benefits our partners, so.
Right, we basically looked at your actual improvements, and we use whatever you did historically and what you programmed. So it's a blend of all those type of different projects, and it's an average. And impact fees are an average. They are not anybody's personalized impact, because there's no way to handle it that way. So they are an average around the service area.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Alexander.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Quick question. In your experience, once, say, the commission to decide to implement the impact fees, you said there's a 90-day start time on that.
Correct.
And my question, I guess, would be regarding the builders, developers, and such. At what point do they become responsible for those? If they've already drawn up have they pulled permits, or at what point do they forego that, and when are they going to be forced to pay those?
So most jurisdictions collect at building permit.
But I'm saying, at that point in time, when they, like say we started June 29th, if they had pulled their initial building permit June 28th, they're not going to be imposed those fees, but as of June 29th, you're going to get it.
Yes, and the building department will be very busy in June.
Good morning, Zach. Okay. I just wanted to establish a timeline on that, so.
And some collect at the CO, excuse me,
All
also.
right. Thank you very much.
And there's a time frame on when we need to make a decision as well, because once you do the study, it's only good for a certain period of time.
We don't have a exact time frame, but yes, within the first, maybe I wouldn't exceed more than 6 months of a adoption period.
Yeah, I thought there was something in statute about that. That's why I'm asking, that you have to do it within a certain period of time.
So the new statutory change is from the point of engagement with your consultant to the point of adoption, you only have 12 months. So the legislature didn't want local governments to be using outdated data as the basis for them providing special assessments for impact fees.
So we are running out of time.
So was this from the point of presentation? The point of presentation or the point of engagement?
Point of engagement when we first engaged with them.
And when did that
It
commence?
doesn't exactly define the beginning point. It's not, is it the day we get the contract, or is it when we collect our data, or is it when we have our first kickoff meeting? So that's the part that's not defined, but in my mind, the latest point we can use is probably when we got the data, so that data is not older than.
Rich, what do you think on that?
So because the law changed midstream for a lot of people, what a number of my clients and other local governments are doing is, because there was a request, a long period of time, a request for data, they were amending the contracts to start on the date where the data was actually provided for analysis.
So where would that put us as Putnam County?
What date is that for us?
I'm looking up.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
All right. Are there any other questions?
We'll take a break.
I think we're going to take a 3-minute recess, and then we'll, thank you for your presentation. You'll stick around for some more questions? Thank you. In this meeting. Thank you for the presentations. We have some public speaker cards we're going to move in regarding this subject matter. Mr. Michael Woodward, thanks for being here today. We always appreciate you coming.
It's good to be appreciated.
That's right.
Michael Woodward, 517 South Francis Street, Interlochen. As I've said before, impact fees aren't about growth versus no growth. They're about whose lunch money pays for whose lunch. Is new development going to pay the costs for the additional infrastructure that the public needs to provide to that new development, or is the burden of that cost going to fall back on the existing tax base? So I'm glad to see the county moving forward with this because I don't like paying for other people's lunch. I have some specific comments about information on table ES1, which is page 86 of your agenda packet. I don't know if that lines up with what you actually have there. I think it's page ES3 of the report. And one of the things that I noticed there is that this schedule, it charges all single-family dwelling units the same. If they're detached, if they're attached, it's different. But there's no difference according to the size. And it hardly seems fair that the impact fee for a 2-bedroom, 1,000-square-foot bungalow would be just as large as the impact fee for a 5-bedroom, 3,500-square-foot house. And I just want to point out to the board for your future consideration that there are alternative methods for how those fees are structured. The impact fee statute itself mentions number of bedrooms and square footage as alternatives for establishing the impact fee charge for residential units. And as you'll see from this chart, all the other types of development do have a per square foot, per 1,000 square foot charge on there. So you might consider going forward discussing with your consultants running some numbers for a tiered system of impact fee charges that would be more fair to the people who are building smaller homes. Another thing I wanted to point out about this schedule and the numbers on it is, as the consultants pointed out, you do have the policy option of going with a number lower than the number that is shown here. What the number here shows, however, is representation, and a fairly conservative one, of what the cost will be to the county taxpayers for the services, the increase in capital expenditures for infrastructure to be able to provide the services that this new development requires. So if you consider going lower, consider that each increment you go lower is putting some of that burden back on the existing tax base rather than leaving it with the development that is actually going to be creating and using that demand. So again, it gets back to the question of who's paying for whose lunch. Also, another factor to consider is, as your consultants mentioned, there is some restriction in the statute about increasing a fee once it is established. There are a lot of hoops to jump through, time delays, limitations on what percentage you can increase it, and so forth. So if you start out lowball, you may find yourself in a difficult position when you want to keep up with inflation. So I leave you with those thoughts. Thank you.
Those are all very good points. Thank you. Mr. Minor, you're recognized.
David Minor, 116 Sheffey Road. I understand a lot of the things that have been said and stuff, and these fees that I've seen here scare me to death. I've been working on a text amendment to try to get my children a home built on a farm piece of property that we've purchased. And I've already got my oldest one's house done. We haven't had to pay an impact fee. My children, in my opinion, and I know I don't see it the way you all do, are not going to affect any type of impact, because the fact is they already live here. They were born here. I've been here since 75. My wife was born here. So we're already paying taxes. We're already living here. We've already crossed that bridge. I'd rather see people that want to move in and do a development. Now, you can call this property that we're doing a development if you want to, but it's a family subdivision. We got some hoops to go through with a text amendment, what have you, but we're already paying the taxes. We're already paying fees. We're already paying for schools that we don't use. There's just so many things that we pay for already. And to do this more money, if you're looking at $8,000 as an impact fee in just round numbers, because we're not in the area where we have a septic tank and all that, I've got 4 houses built for my quadruplets, okay? So that's $32,000 that I've got to pay when we'll have our own wells, our own septic tanks. I have to do the road base, which I've already done. Well, there's a lot of things that we have to do. How is that affecting the cost of the county? Now, we're on Highway 17, that property is. So we're not affecting any county roads. The effectiveness that we can come up with is, okay, but you're going to use the roads going to the store and stuff. But we already do. If they stayed living with me, we're already affecting it. There should be some waivers on people that's already paid their share in the community, okay? Exemptions or discounts or something. It just scares the mess out of me to try to help my children so they didn't have to work and live as hard as I did when I was younger. So I want to see something to be implemented. If I understand the impact fees. I even thought about, I'd rather see them pay charge for more for gas taxes and use that as an impact fee, because the fact is then everybody is sharing it, and that way we pay for our own lunches, right? So if everybody, I like that term, that was pretty good. But the fact is, if you only got 30% people that live in Putnam County that pays property tax anyway, there's so many exemptions and they don't improve their life, their self. They're where they were 20 years ago, 30 years ago. So here I've improved myself, and because I've improved myself and want to improve my family, I've got to pay an impact fee that I've not impacted Putnam County. I've actually developed part of Putnam County. I mean, I've done quite a few buildings and quite a few developments and stuff. So I've paid my impact fees out of my pocket.
Thank you. So that does bring up a good question and a good point. Is there a way that you can exempt out current residents?
So, Madam Chair, I'll let our consultants address some of that issue, because they're the ones that, as part of our engagement with them, that would have to defend this in court if it ever got challenged. I mean, the general principle for the most part is that the application of the assessments has to be fairly apportioned based on the use. The other thing I also just want to quickly mention is that because we talk about impact fees, and sometimes this gets confused, the school board has their own ability to levy impact fees, which have nothing to do with us. So no matter what ours are, someone who creates development, the school board may not have the same type of exemption that is being requested or that may ultimately be approved by this board.
Yeah, thanks for saying that. That's a very true statement. Thank you.
So the impact fees are attached to the buildings, and they are not necessarily differentiated by who buys that building. It's one-time payment for the life of the building. Different families will live there. Even in the case of the gentleman who's building home for his kids, the kids probably will have families. Their impact will increase over time. And if they sell that property, that value stays with it. So it's just one-time payment. If anybody else buys that building, tears it down, builds about the same type of building, they don't pay an impact fee. It's a credit against it. So there is really no mechanism that makes an exception for family or non-family. The only exemptions that the law allows is for affordable and workforce housing. For the qualified affordable workforce housing, we're able to discount the fees or waive them. Otherwise, in some cases, the counties bought down fees, just like I mentioned about St. Johns County, like economic development type of initiatives by using some other revenue source.
Okay. All right. Are there any other questions?
Yes, ma'am, I have one. Could you define workforce housing for me, please?
Yes, it's up to 120% of the area median income. Families who make up to 120% of the area median income qualify for, if it's a house that they can afford, then it's qualified. So it's like less than 30% of their income goes to housing, and their income is either 120% or less than average median income of the area. It's like a formula.
Okay.
There's a statute that defines it, and this in the Impact Fee Act, they refer those who qualify under that. You can reduce them, and usually your housing department may be using SHIP funds. Those are the same type of housing, typically.
And we don't have a very high median income here in Putnam.
Average median area income.
Mm-hmm. So, just asking a question. Thank you.
All right. All right. Back to the board for discussion and how we want to proceed. Commissioner Harvey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think based on the information, this is our first sniff of the apple. Didn't even get a real big bite of it. I do think we need to probably go into a workshop session very, very soon. Time is not in our favor here. And also invite our stakeholders to that, our constitutional, the people that are affected by it, our business community there. Now we have time to look at it, but probably within 30 days, we need to be looking at getting together and doing this and moving this ball forward. That's my opinion. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I would agree with Mr. Harvey. Time is of the essence. Again, I understand Mr. Woodward's argument, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what size house you have. It's the same size fire truck that's coming. It's the same amount of police officers. It's the same, chopper pumps, water system. You're receiving all of that. And, I've raised a family. I know that my first house was smaller, but I had a lot more people in it. And as my children have grown and they've exited the home, my houses have grown larger because my wealth has increased, but I've got fewer people there. So it's kind of a slippery slope. And, you would be relying on people to be honest about the number of people that are living in a home. So I've seen people 10 or 20 in a house, depending on the conditions. So it's kind of hard to do that. But when you have hard data as to a house, that's what the impact fees. And it seems to make things more difficult the more criteria you add to it. I appreciate what you're saying. And as far as Mr. Minor's questions, I would love to see that, but I don't understand the legality, and based on what I'm hearing, I don't think there is a legality for a type of portability as we would see in taxes. We've talked about it, and we would love to see something like that, because I agree with you. We've been here. We paid our dues to live in Putnam County. But undoubtedly, your children will have an impact on the county. They'll have wives or daughter or husbands, either way, children, additional vehicles. So there will be an additional burden at some point. I don't know how we fix that, but I do sympathize with what you're saying, because I've been here my entire life. My family's been here their entire life, and we've paid those fees. So I don't know what the solution is, but I understand what you're saying, Mr. Minor.
Okay. Any other comments? All right, so it looks like we want to move forward with a workshop. We are missing a commissioner today. He had some surgery. That's why Commissioner Palacier's out. So in respect for him, we obviously need to make sure that we have a workshop where he can have his input as well. So we wish him the best, but we'll see him hopefully in a few days. He'll be back on his feet. So a workshop sounds like what we're looking at, Mr. Suggs, a workshop for the future. With some stakeholders and public meeting, business community.
So you have to go through a public hearing process in order for adoption anyway. You can combine the two things where you invite stakeholders to the public hearing process, where I think for you as a commission, it would have that kind of feel like a workshop, but it would also enable you to take votes based on the feedback that you get during those meetings.
At that time, would we have the draft,
You can ask the consultants
ordinance?
for it. Mhm.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, I think we would like to, that's what I would like to see, is if we're going to, go forward, then I think we would need to have the draft ordinance to take a look at as well.
Do we need to make a motion for a workshop?
Yes, please.
I'd like to make a motion that we hold a workshop engaging our community partners regarding the adoption of the impact fees.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. So, move forward. Before we, I do want to mention, we have the Honorable Annie Davis from City of Palatka with us, Palatka City Commissioner. We also have Denise Vogelstein from the Florida Association of Counties Trust. And we have Laura Palvis from the Putnam County Chamber as the Executive Director. Benji Bates, President of Putnam Chamber, is also here, and Palatka City Attorney Jane West is also in the audience. So we just want to recognize you and thank you for being here. All right, moving on.
Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
So just for clarification, are you looking to combine that first public hearing?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, good morning. This is, for the record, Michael Graves, Planning and Development Services. We are discussing rezone 25-000001. Ms. Kathleen Kelch is requesting a zoning map amendment from Agriculture Estate, Plan Unit Development, and Residential 1 to Agriculture Estate on an 18.14 acre property located at 205 St. John's Drive in Palatka to establish consistent zoning and allow for development. The surrounding zoning is consisting of Agriculture Estate and Residential 1. The subject site has a future land use category of rural residential according to the National Wetland Index wetlands layer and the FEMA flood zone layer on the GIS reference map. Lands do not appear to contain wetlands and is located in FEMA flood zone X, X500, and a small portion of AE, which is a special flood hazard area. Should the applicant's request be approved, the parcel will be eligible for building permits to construct a single-family residence adhering to the regulations of the Agriculture Estate Zoning District, as well as any other developments allowed by right in the AE Zoning District. Here you can see an aerial overview of the property, the future land use, the split zoning, and it is staff's recommendation to approve the request to amend the zoning map amendment from Agriculture Estate, Plan Unit Development, and Residential 1 to Agriculture Estate. Staff finds that the proposed rezoning is consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the adopted comprehensive plan and meets the locational requirements of the Agriculture Estate Zoning District provided in the Land Development Code and the comprehensive plan. In their March 12, 2025 meeting, the Putnam County Planning Commission unanimously voted to recommend approval of the same request. This is going to be meeting 1 of 2, as the size of the property indicates that we have to have a second meeting to approve the rezone. Any questions?
Commissioner Harvey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have a question, and it might be better for Zach at this point, but you can try it if you'd like to take a stab at it. In the request, it says remove the undeveloped PUD, which elsewise renders the property ineligible. Zach, you and I had a talk a long time ago about some of these old PUDs, and correct me if I'm wrong, because sometimes I hear what I want to hear, and I do admit that. But you said some of these PUDs, or I heard some of these PUDs expire on their own after a certain time frame. So why didn't this one just expire on its own?
So even when for the record, Zachary Baker, when the PUD expires, it doesn't necessarily mean that all the entitlements go away or revert back to what the land originally was. What it does is it renders that property undevelopable because the PUD was governing what you could do, but then it expired. So now essentially it's a broken PUD that we can't utilize. So within that legal description, that's where that zoning is located. So that portion of the property would be unbuildable unless it followed the regulations established in that PUD. But when it expires, those regulations no longer exist. So it's almost like a no man's land, if you will. It's worth noting too that the majority of that property could have some development on it, but this is also a measure to make consistent the zoning on the property, so we know exactly what setbacks to assign, we know what the allowed uses are, and we don't have to waver between some imaginary line that nobody can actually go out and point their finger to say, well, you can't have a shed there, that's residential 1 property, it has to be 12 feet this way, so we're making it consistent is more or less the top priority here.
Well, Zach, thank you, Madam Chair.
Are there any other questions for staff? Commissioner Newbold?
Yes, just a clarification on those expired PUDs. So if this applicant decided they wanted to utilize that existing PUD, they would have to come back and get it reestablished, which I'm assuming would be less onerous than developing a new PUD.
That is correct. They would need to reestablish the PUD. They would have to either go through the process again or perform a PUD amendment. Of note is that the PUD that was proposed there was going to be a multifamily development with a bit of commercial mixed in as well as institutional. And because of the area, we can't really support that in the modern day, so more than likely they would not be able to reestablish this exact same PUD.
Okay, thank you. That gives me some insight on the process anyway. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Do we have any speaker cards for this subject matter? Is there anybody in the audience who would like to speak for or against this issue? All right, coming back to the board.
Madam Chair, since seeing no one wants to speak, I move this to our next meeting on May 13th. I believe that's our first meeting in May at 9 o'clock that we'll hear this again.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
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 All right, motion passes. We'll hear this for the second time on May 13th.
Madam Chair, an email went out yesterday afternoon. Item B under Planning and Zoning Public Hearings has been withdrawn. The application was withdrawn by the applicant yesterday afternoon.
Okay. Going on into consent agenda items. This portion of the agenda is designed to allow citizens an opportunity to bring matters to the attention of the board. It is not reasonable to expect that the board will engage in debate or deliberation about matters on which the board has received no prior information as part of the agenda. Please limit your time to 3 minutes. Public comment cards are conveniently placed at the meeting room entrance and should be submitted prior to the meeting to the deputy clerk who sits to the right of the podium. Madam Clerk, do we have any cards? Is there anybody who wants to speak on agenda items only? All right, seeing none, back to commissioners. Anybody would like to pull something? Not push, pull. Commissioner Harvey.
I have none, thank you.
Commissioner Newbold.
None to pull.
Commissioner Alexander.
No, ma'am, none to pull.
And I have none.
Madam Chair, I'd like to move a motion that we can approve the consent agenda items A, B, C, D, E, F, and G.
I'll second that.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Motion passes. All right, moving on into new business. We have our 2025 second quarter budget reports.
Where's our employee of the month?
Here he comes.
Hello again. Y'all ready?
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to start with the general fund. We're looking at revenue sources. So for taxes, wait, hang on. First off, government budgets are cyclical, so your taxes are going to be higher in the front end and then lower in the back end, and it's going to trickle in. So for taxes, we're at 85% received. Permits, fees, and special assessments, we're at 53%. Intergovernmental, which includes your grants, your like state revenues, state shared revenues, is at 74%. Your charges for services are at 39%. And then your fines and forfeitures are a little low at 7%, but I believe that'll pick up by third quarter. And then other revenue is at 164%, and this includes your rent for the buildings around the county, interest, and then mostly the reason you're seeing it high is we had a surplus sale of land. So that's why it's pretty high at 164%. Then we're going to go to expense objects. So for personnel services, we're at 53%, which is about right where we want to be. And that can just be depending on the biweekly pay and things. Operating expenses are 40% for the general fund, which is good. Capital outlay is at 10%, which does look low, but we also have a big fair project in there that takes up part of it, and then the commissioner accounts, and then just random capital projects in there. So that happens. Capital is big projects or buildings or equipment, and so that's more or less, it can be higher or lower depending on just how people are spending that money and how far along projects are. Grants and aids, we're at 67%. Sorry, I'm bad with the microphone. And your grants and aids include anything from the county health unit to like the Lee Conley House ride solution, anything like that that goes out from the county. And then other financing uses, mostly transfers, are at 50%. And then our reserves are at $14,508,923. So do y'all have any questions on the general fund?
I do. If this is only the first quarter, how could you be at 50% for personnel?
This quarter too, we're midway through the year.
But it says for some of fiscal year quarter one.
That's my bad. I didn't update those.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
It's for quarter two. Okay.
Everything should say Q2. I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
That's just me.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, no, we're at
Makes
Q2.
sense.
This is a Q2 report. We're midway through the year.
Okay,
I
thank you.
apologize. That's just my Excel
Okay,
sheet.
that was my only question.
Okay, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Any other questions?
Nope.
Okay, so now we're in the transportation fund. So for our revenue sources, we have taxes, which is at 52%, and that's our 9-cent and local option tax. And then permits, fees, and special assessments are at 32%. Our intergovernmental, which is again state revenue share proceeds and like grants and things like that, is at 36%. Charges for services are at 0. Other revenue is at 32%. And then we're going to move down to expenses. So our personnel services are at 46%, operating is at 47%, and then capital outlay is at 63%. And all of those are right where you kind of want them to be. Because if your operating's too low at halfway through the year, then you're not utilizing your dollars. But if it's too high, then you're overspending budget. And same with personnel. You want to be at 50 because people work 50% of the year. And then for our reserves, we have $1,785,274. And again, this is Q2, so I think all of my top titles are going to say Q1.
Okay.
I apologize. Any questions on the transportation fund? Okay. So now we're going to move along to the fire fund, and this is your ad valorem taxes, just kind of similar to how the general fund is, and but this is your fire MSBU taxes. But it's at 87%, and then intergovernmental is at 33%. Charges for services are at 0, and then other revenue is at 88%. All in all, we're at 73% revenue for this fund. And then when we move down to expenses, you'll see that personnel services are only at 25%, but the fire fund can fluctuate depending on how much overtime and things are going on. So theirs can change, but we're looking good on that. Operating expenses, they're at 25%, and then capital outlay is at 22%. So all in all, we've expensed 24% of this fund, and the reserves are at $680,555. Any questions on this fund? The sanitation fund has, for permits, fees, and special assessments, 67% of their revenue received. Intergovernmental, they've received 100%. Charges for services, they've received 45%. And then fines and forfeitures, they've received some money, but there was originally nothing budgeted for that, so there's not a percentage. And then other revenue is at 118%, and this is just high interest and miscellaneous revenues. And then when we move down to our expense objects, you'll see that for personnel services, we're at 47%. Operating is at 41%, and capital outlay is at 10%. So, and they just have a lot of mandated improvements and big projects, and those things take longer, so that's why that's rather low on capital. But the operating and personnel looks good. So all in all, expensed out, we're at 33% for the total. And then they have 37,875. They have 37 million in the reserves, and that 2 million of that is for regular reserves, 11 is for future projects, and then 24 is for escrow. Any questions on the sanitation fund? Okay, now this one I did have another scrivener's error. So at the little bottom, you'll see the chart that breaks up the reserves. The reserves for future projects is correct, and the reserves for debt is correct. I did not update the continued reserves. But the reserves in the chart, like the reserves that say 1.793, where it says that, that's the correct number.
Okay.
I do apologize for
That's
that
okay.
one. So 1.793 is the correct number. All right, so for the revenue source, intergovernmental, we're at 9%. This is grants, so you're waiting on reimbursements or things from like that. So it is going to be low just depending on how far along projects are in that reimbursement progress is. Charges for services is at 38%, but they always expect to get more customers, so I think that's the end goal. Other revenue is at 83%, so all in all, they've only collected 12% of their revenue, but again, it's a very heavily grant-focused revenue base. So if those projects aren't done and the reimbursement isn't back, then you're not going to see that. And so two of those major projects are the FDEP septic to sewer, and then I believe the Army water phase modernization project. So both of those are rather large projects, and if you don't get those, you'll get the grant reimbursement back when those are more completed. So for personnel services, they're at 52%. Operating, they're at 29%. Capital outlay, they're at 10%. And then debt service, they're at 29%. And the debt service is the bonds, loans, and interest payments for all of their things. So again, you'll see that there's not a lot of capital outlay right now, so you're not going to see a lot of that front-end intergovernmental grant revenue. That makes sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. And again, the 1.793 is the correct reserve amount. Any questions? And then lastly, we have St. John's Harbor Water Plant, which this is a rather new fund. We have 44% received for our charges for services, and that's just mostly potable water charges. Other revenue is already at 100% received. And then, so we go down to the personnel services, it's only at 4% for the year. Operating is at 50%, which is exactly what we want to see. Capital outlay hasn't spent anything yet. And then debt service is at 17%. And that's, the debt service is the principal USDA bond. And then their reserves are 1,055,296. And I believe that was funded through the county.
It was, and so that $1 million is from the counties, yeah.
I believe it was interest-free.
Yes, that's true.
So,
And that was a loan, too.
Yeah,
correct?
it's like that, yeah.
yeah, that's the principal USDA. Any questions on that? And like I said, this is a rather new fund, so it doesn't have many comparisons to last year, but we are keeping track of it and reporting it to you guys. And then the last page is the Putnam County Board of County Commissioners capital outlay accounts. So these are y'all's accounts for y'all's commissioner dollars, and you'll see there's an original budget column, and in that you'll see the $200,000 that everyone got each year, and then if you had any carry forward dollars. So the current budget to the right of that shows how it is all split up. Do y'all have any questions on that one? Y'all can take a look at that too.
Say mine, for example.
Yeah.
If you take the 175 plus 200, that gives you 375, then minus the 35 and the 10, and the 330 is your balance.
Yeah,
Oh, I
so
see. What-
in the
what-
current budget column on your capital outlay line is what your current unallocated dollars are. And Commissioner Alexander, as you pointed out, your 24 carry forward was directed by Commissioner Turner, which was prior to you. And then of the ones for you, that's just that bottom line.
Correct.
I got it. Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Newbold, we're going to need you to spend some money.
I'm working on it.
I'm teasing.
He's got ideas.
It's everything, right? Yeah.
Better hang on, I got some
Yeah,
ideas.
that's right. Hold on tight.
Hold on tight.
And I might be needing some of your help too.
Okay. Okay, I understand. Thank you.
All right, you did a great job.
Y'all have any questions for me?
Any questions for Briar?
Thank you. And I do apologize for the Q2 issue. I'll make sure to have Q3 on
All
the
right,
next
this
one.
is how you learn. Yeah.
You don't
It's
make
okay.
the same mistake twice, do you?
Public comment on miscellaneous items. Do we have anybody who wants to speak on miscellaneous items? All right, going into.
You have
Yep,
one.
I have one. Thank you. Thank you. Tiffany, is it Crozier? All right. Right up here. Yep, right up here to the podium, please. Please state your name and address for the record.
Thank you so much. My name's Tiffany Crozier, 195 Horseman Club Road. Good morning, and thank you for your time and commitment to our community. I'm here to represent the residents on Horseman Club Road. We're frustrated and we're fed up with the reckless driving and the high-speed drivers. Putnam County has a reputation for its charm and its friendly, family-friendly environment, and this is slowly deteriorating due to the careless driving that's happening. We've had two families that have lost pets, one of them being my own, due to careless and speeding drivers. I was personally hit with a mirror of a car while collecting my mail. Last night I was woke up at 4 a.m. with high-speed revving of a vehicle coming off of 19. Drivers are turning off of 19 and resuming their highway speeds. The police have attempted to make their presence known, and we greatly appreciate them. We appreciate the efforts of the Putnam County Sheriff, but the reality is that they can't be here all the time, and the nature of this street being a cut-through from Highway 19 to 20 leaves too much opportunity for unnecessary traffic. Even the school buses are flying down the road. Every single neighbor along this road has voiced their intense concern for the increase in traffic. We'd like to know what practical solutions are being made to keep our families safe. The school is already bringing increased traffic of large trucks that have no respect for the speed limit. And soon there will be children involved, and if something is not done, it will not be a matter of if something happens, but when something happens. We're very, very grateful for the attempts of the Sheriff's Office, but we need a permanent solution that will slow people down regardless of police presence. We have a narrow road with deep runoffs on either side and no sidewalks. The speed limit is already inappropriate at 35 miles per hour. We're a partially agricultural neighborhood with horseback riding, children, and disabled homeowners. According to the FDOT regulations, we should be at 25 miles per hour. Rumor has it that this is being addressed. But honestly, a posted sign means nothing as it's already being proven by the careless drivers. It's been said speed bumps can cause a liability. It's frustrating to us as homeowners that a reckless driver's liability is more important than that of the residents who live here. Children, pets, and disabled parents could be injured or killed. My father lives with me and is legally blind. He keeps independence by riding his bicycle to local senior homes to read to the seniors, and he likes to take himself to his own doctor's appointments. Please hear us and help us to keep our families safe and avoid a tragedy that will be devastating not only for the families but to our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Tiffany, thank you for coming and speaking. most of the commissioners know here, I was raised on Horseman Club Road, and I am very aware of the dangers in the speeding because it's a cut through from Highway 19 to Silver Lake Drive and on down to Stokes Landing Road. A lot of younger folks, a lot of younger families. Our house, we built it at the corner of Horseman Club and Silver Lake Drive. So Friday nights, we got to hear all of the loud pipes, the revving motors, so we fully understand, or I fully understand what you're saying. As far as a solution to it, I spent many a sleepless night on that corner thinking about one of those trucks getting sideways and coming through the front door or one of my children's windows, which are on the right-hand side of the house. If you'll notice, that yellow and white house has a large oak tree in the front yard that was left there on purpose. So I don't know what solutions to offer, but I'm hoping that my other commissioners could provide some insight. They've got a lot more experience than I do in this of this nature, so I'm hoping Commissioner Harvey or Commissioner Wilkinson may have some experience and some insight that they can provide, or even our legal counsel of what could possibly be done.
Well, I'll be glad to talk about it. You know, you've heard me say, even when it comes to animal control, it's personal responsibility. It's all about driving the speed limit. And if we need to lower the speed limit on that road, then so be it. It was taught to me during the break about a speed bump, but those things don't work. They actually cause problems in some areas, so we don't really want to look at that. But if people would just do that, I like the flashing lights. I think sometimes people speed and they're not realizing they're speeding. They might be distracted or something. I like the ones that say you're going this fast. And that makes people kind of go, oh man, I messed up a little bit. Maybe I wasn't paying it. Maybe the kids were talking. Maybe the radio was too loud. Maybe my favorite song was on. I don't know the deal. But I think that gets your attention more than anything, is when you realize, oh, I'm doing wrong. Give me another opportunity to do right. And I think that's always been a problem. And I think with the added traffic at the new school that's going to be done, you know, I drove down it Sunday afternoon, headed to the cemetery. I was doing a little private thing there. And I hate to say this, but even on our right-of-way, there's edifices built out there. There's concrete mailbox things. If you pulled over, you'd be in trouble. And we got to start looking at those things when it comes to those country roads, because they're no longer country roads anymore. They're
speedways.
They're big. So I think some type of enforcement more with flashing lights, you're going this fast, slow down. I think that helps out a lot.
What are you guys' thoughts on maybe creating a pilot program regarding implementing a roundabout of a more rural nature there at the intersection of Silver Lake and Horseman Club, and possibly at what's the one midway down? I mean, somewhere in there. Yeah. Davis Lake, and then there's also the little development there. Yeah, maybe putting something like that in there to slow that traffic. Because, you know, the signs are great, but you physically have to slow down to go through a roundabout, or it's going to be a pretty rough ride.
You're saying a roundabout on the state road or the county road?
Maybe on the county road. Maybe start at...
We haven't done that before.
No, maybe something to try.
I'm not saying you couldn't. This, to me, this is an enforcement issue. I would encourage her to make sure she speaks in front of the school district and let them know the problems they have. We already have a speed limit that she admitted people aren't following.
Oh, yeah.
And so putting a sign with a lower number doesn't really make a difference.
Right.
And I do think that she can go, or somebody from the neighborhood could ask the county sheriff's office to put up one of those flashing signs, because I did that in Barden when we were having an issue. And it does help for a little bit, and then eventually they stop paying attention to it. But it does slow them down for a little bit.
For a little bit, but it's a temporary solution. I'd like to see her maybe explore a roundabout and what the cost might be, and just see if it works there, and if it is, maybe it would be successful in other areas we're having trouble if it's not a really high cost.
Yeah, like I said, we just haven't designed one of those or done those before. Whatever, if you're certainly free to talk to staff and see if that's a doable thing.
I guess that'd be JR and Mr.
In that particular location, we would need some board direction because land acquisition is going to be an issue for a roundabout at Horseman Club.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And as far as speed bumps, that's a law enforcement issue as well. Speed bumps are a law enforcement. We've not typically put speed bumps down. Is that correct?
That is correct. There's actually kind of, when you talk to FDOT, the traffic people, there's a pro and a con to it, right? People may slow down for the bump, but then they actually speed up faster than what they were going normally between bump to bump. Now, obviously, it's y'all's, board direction, but there's definitely pros and cons to each of those solutions or obstacles, challenges, and opportunities as they come.
But historically, we've not done that because it's a law enforcement
That's correct.
role.
That's correct.
Terry, did you have something, Mr. Suggs?
No, it's coming from a smaller municipality. We were responsible for putting in speed humps in our municipality. Our public works department did it after studies, but that's probably something else we probably need to do as a traffic study and get with the sheriff's office, because we actually put out some notification signs that let people know, like Commissioner Harvey was saying, and do some type of study and notification of those folks and see what we can do education-wise. And then, certainly the roundabout is an option, but it is going to be an expensive option, I'm afraid. So,
For a roundabout?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Go ahead, Mr. Newbold. Commissioner Newbold.
I have seen recently in school zones where there will be a permanent sign up that recognizes your speed as opposed to a temporary one. And I think a lot of people are under the misunderstanding, maybe misconception that, hey, this thing is watching me. It is catching my speed in comparison to the posted speed. And, oh, is this thing taking a picture of my tag? Am I going to get a ticket here at some point in the game? And some municipalities have gone to, in school zones, have gone to that, that access. But I think this does, it's a feeder between, there's going to be a school out there, that's a feeder between two highways.
Well, remember, the school zone, the school district had asked if we wanted to participate in the school zone ticketing, and we didn't take that up.
Yeah,
So,
I get it. But I've seen it in other communities. But, when people see that sign registering their vehicle, they go,
Oh yeah, I've been there. The red and blue lights flash and the speed flashing. It's like, oh man, it does have an effect.
Maybe an option.
Yeah, and you really can't put a value on a child's life. There's nothing more precious. And if it's $100,000 or $50,000 to save a kid's life, really?
Ms. Young?
That's me.
Oh,
We have the
Mr.
same
Grimes?
picture on your screen. Maybe, if as you travel through Willaca, it's just a municipality. The streets are small, narrow. It's kind of the same or same. They have those exact signs on every entrance into the town of Willaca, right? You're coming out of a 55-mile-an-hour zone coming from the south by Division of Forestry, and it goes to 35. It tells you right there. It flashes at you. They actually have a speed trailer at the north end of town, but coming in even off the east traveling westbound into Waukee, they have the same sign. It's a speed limit sign with a small display screen on the bottom that flashes at you when you're speeding. If you guys want us to look at something like that, we can definitely bring back some adjustments, but I do keep in mind that all those have an expense, right? So with those, we're going to have to look at something because we're not in Public Works accustomed to buying speed radar detected devices on the bottom of our signs. So there is some infrastructure upgrade costs that are going to be associated with those we could bring back to you.
Go ahead.
In conjunction with Willaca, Willaca's known. If you go through there, you've got that sign, but their enforcement arm puts a hammer down on you too. So if we do put those in, if we could get the sheriff to spend a little extra time at the beginning, it'll get the reputation for you speed here, you're in trouble.
It is not far, but beyond that sign that there is a officer sitting. So it is being enforced on the backside of that sign as well.
Yes, blue light therapy is not just only effective for skin cancer.
Well, it sounds like that might be a solution. Could you get a cost for that on that road?
Yes, ma'am, we'll be happy to, as
Okay.
kind of a model of what that would look like. If there's some other areas in the county that need it as well.
Is that what you're wanting, Commissioner Alexander? Sorry, I have a mitt in my mouth. Is that what you're wanting, Commissioner Alexander?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right, thank you. Moving on into appointments. Commissioner Newbold, do you have any appointments?
I'm afraid I do not.
No problem. Commissioner Alexander,
No, ma'am, not today.
Commissioner Harvey,
I have none.
and I have none. Clerk of Court, comments?
Good morning, Madam
Good
Chair
morning.
and Commissioners. I have nothing for the board this morning. It's good to see everybody.
Thank you. County Attorney,
Nothing today, Madam Chair. Thank you.
County Administrator.
Nothing today, Madam Chair.
All right, going into Commissioner comments, starting with Commissioner Newbold.
Thank you. Just a couple of little quickies to bring up. We've got the Bostwick Blueberry Festival this weekend on Saturday, and I know a lot of the commissioners will be participating and many other staff. That's an amazing event. Last year was the first time I'd gone there in years, and oh my gosh, what a blowout. And it's great to see Putnam County putting on such a fantastic, and Bostwick putting on such a fantastic event. Competing with that down in Crescent City, we have Spring Fest. The city and I don't know, there's an entity down, the municipal entity that's putting that on, but the Historical Society is going to be doing a history walk down Central Avenue, and a local band of players are doing historical talks in historical garb. Anyway, it's kind of a fun deal. So if you can make it from Bostwick to Crescent City, please do. A little more serious note, the fairgrounds project, the building project there is going to be ramping up soon. There'll be a lot of activity there. I'd like to see a little more back and forth and information shared between the Fair Board and the Commission. I think it's time for that right now, given this specific project, and I'd like to be a part of that process.
Okay.
If I could. I've been involved with that board in the past and have a good relationship. We'd like to see that relationship between their board and our board continue in a positive manner. And I don't know what it would take to do that. I mean, I'd be willing to be a liaison if that fits the bill. But anyway,
I think that's great. I think we can do a wave in support of that, and because we all can't attend the meetings, obviously, because Sunshine Law, but if you want to start attending the meetings on behalf of the county commission, and I think there is a little bit of a gap, and that could help with that. I would be for that. So everybody wants to wave in support? All right, looks like you got it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your willingness.
Yep.
On a little side note, though, Commissioner Newbold,
Yes, sir.
if you would come back and brief us on what's going on.
Absolutely.
Because I'd like to know too, and I'm sure the rest of us would.
Yep, and that's really what I had in mind. That's going to be a great project for the community. It's going to be complicated, and it's going to take a bit of doing, but in the end, it's going to be a great asset.
And something that's been in my side since the day I got here is that floor in that building. And before I ever leave this office, and I don't know when that's coming, I want to see that floor get done. I'm just saying.
Well, we'll see if we can't get you to participate.
Is that natural travertine, Commissioner, or what are we looking at?
We'll do what we got to do right now.
Is that all your comments?
Yes, that's it. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Alexander.
Not a whole lot that I wanted to add today. I think I've said more than enough, but I do want to applaud Commissioner Newbold for taking the lead and wanting to get involved with the Fair Board. And it's something I repeat frequently. Each one of these commissioners that are in place now brings a different skill set to the dais. And Commissioner Newbold has been involved with the fair for years. So it just makes perfect sense for him to get back in there and provide that input to the Fair Board, the engineers and staff, and be able to be that liaison between the commission and us. So that's really it. It's great to see people utilizing their talents and their abilities to move Putnam County forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Harvey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to be a little more on a personal note, if you could pass these down, if you don't mind.
Sure.
I am very much considering, and this is today, I want to make the announcement that I'd like to run for the second VP of the Florida Association of Counties. I have done that before. I meet all the eligible requirements, which are very onerous on some people. Came in short the last time I ran. but just by a few votes. And I believe that it's time to have a qualified person from Putnam County, Northeast Florida, represent the Florida Association of Counties. It will only benefit our county to have that person there. And what I need from you, from this board, is a letter allowing me that I have the approval of this board to be able to serve in that arena if I so get elected come at convention in June.
I'll support that.
Do we need to make a motion to provide him with a letter?
No, I can't. Go ahead.
We do? Well, I would like to make that motion, Mr. Harvey. Thank you for supporting Putnam County.
All right, we have a motion
And a second.
and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Discussion, Mr. Suggs.
Yes, ma'am, Madam Chair. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak this morning on this matter here. Commissioner Harvey spoke to me about this yesterday, and I'm going to do a shameless plug here. 8 years in going to conferences and hanging out with Commissioner Harvey, and I will tell you that there is no one in the state of Florida that outworks Commissioner Harvey at a conference. He's done a tremendous job, not only for Putnam County representation in Putnam County, but throughout the state. And Ms. Young and I were actually at the conference when we witnessed the flash come running through the room and on his broadband presentation. And again, someone that works tirelessly for another broadband for Putnam County. So I'm excited to see Commissioner Harvey doing this. And Commissioner, anything you need from me, staff-wise and personal-wise, you just let us know, because I think it is a golden opportunity for Putnam County to have someone representing us at that level of the state. So thank you for doing this.
Thank you, sir.
You have anything else?
No, I'm good.
You're good? Okay.
Thank you all very much.
So a couple things. Bostwick Blueberry's already been mentioned. It's this Saturday beginning at 8 a.m. Get out there early if you want to have some blueberry pancakes. I'll be taking your money at the door. Do have a question regarding Animal Services Building. I'm tired of seeing it on social media. When are we ever going to get that thing done? And I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but I'm just tired of seeing it. And I know you guys have worked really hard with the contractor. I know you have.
The last word I had was the end of April, but we're at the end of April.
Yeah.
The building's not done. Trying to put this the best way I can. We're still working diligently trying to get it there, day by day. To give you an exact date, I'm not sure. I think as we push hard, we're getting close, but to give you a drop dead date opening, I don't have it for you today.
Well, listen, if you need paint, I'm a good painter. If you need me to go paint, I'm not good at construction, but I can paint. I can decorate. I can move furniture. But no, seriously, it is something that's people are really asking about continuously. So anything you can do to help. I know you've been working side by side with the contractor.
I'll reach out to the contractor again today and get a drop dead date to have it completed, and it'll go from there.
Mr. Suggs, I'm sorry. Do you have a comment, Mr. Suggs? Okay.
Oh, I have a comment on that.
Okay, go ahead.
If it's not done by the next commission meeting, I'd like to have them in here and ask them what's up. They gave us an April deadline, and they're not done, and I want to know why.
Okay. Mr. Harvey, you have any comments?
I do.
Go ahead.
This isn't the first deadline we've gotten, and the hopeful deadline. It was going to be done by Thanksgiving. It was going to be done by Christmas. And now we're looking at the end of April. But I like what Commissioner Wilkinson said, and maybe she said it in fun, but I can rake. I'm not a good builder, but I can sure paint. I can do things. JR, if we need to have a work day out there.
You're serious.
I'm all serious about, getting out there and trying to get this, because it's been a long road. And I can tell you that one of the first things when I got here was Animal Services Building, and it's still here today. So it is time to bring that plane in for a landing, and if we need to light up the runway, let us know what we need to do, and I'll be glad to get out there and do it.
Okay, so I hear you. It's not raking the yard. It's not doing that. At some point, we were given a goal that sometimes is unachievable. Okay? That building's cost was $1.5 million. We were given a budget of $895. We hit impasse with the first two construction companies at the board's direction. We get the low bid in these projects. With that, here we are.
Yeah.
We were given an unrealistic task. If you guys would have said we had 1.5 million, there would be dogs in that facility out there. That's not what we were given. We were given $895,000 to build $1.5 million building. So that's kind of where we are today.
And you know what? I appreciate you saying that and just calling it out because it's the truth. And,
That is the truth.
And I've watched staff try to value engineer this thing as much as they can and on a regular basis. And this is the challenge we face. And what is it the Clay County's building one for?
$26 million.
Yeah, 26 million, and we don't even have $1 million on this. So this is a discussion we have to have as a board, and I'm glad we're having it because if there's, there hasn't been any change orders on this project that cost any extra.
I think we're up to change order 41, but they've all been in deductions because we've had a direct owner purchase all the material.
Yeah.
We've paid that out. I had to ask Ms. Nicole. That's exactly right. The last one I know was 41, but they were 42. They were all in the deduction going down because.
I can hear you, Ms. Julianne.
That's part of the contingency we made to cut every single dime down to a budget.
Right.
Was that every single time we could save 7%, we told them, okay, we're not going to give you those dollars. We're going to try to buy it direct. And so now we've also, on the backside, made 42 individual purchases for trinkets, pieces and parts that the contractor needs to do what he's trying to accomplish.
Just for the public, not trinkets, but like real material.
Cabinets, steel,
Right.
welding,
So-
boards.
So are we saying that the delay may have been on our timeline of purchasing, or we have a shortage of money, or did?
The
say
timeline is not a delay in.
No, I'm not attacking you guys. I just, the contractor, I would assume, gave us the deadline of when they anticipated completion of this project. So I'm not saying that it's you guys. I want to understand if they gave you that deadline, why they aren't there. Is that where we got this time frame at the end of April, or is that a number that you guys came up with? No, you guys have done a fantastic job with the amount of money you've given. Don't discount what I'm saying. I just want to understand why we're not there if that's the goal that the contractor gave us.
Right. So, every change order causes a delay, right? Because he's got to submit it to us.
Mm-hmm.
We've got to do the deduction. He's got to sign for it. We've got to order the pieces and parts. We've got to get them to the job. We have to, every time, say, hey, your cabinets are here. I'm just going to use cabinets for an example. But it was every small piece. It was the load of steel to weld the kennels. It was the concrete that was on the ground. Every one of those, he has to approve that. So he has to submit to us the stuff. We have to do a deductive change. We have to submit it back to them. We have to get the vendor engaged. If we'd have had realistic expectations set out in the front where we could have turned the project loose and they could have done it, much like a fire station that's being built in the west end of the county.
Mm-hmm.
That came in a budget that we had. It was a realistic project. It is subject to open in August because there has been no built-in delay because we turned them over a shovel-ready project. This is not the definition of a shovel-ready project. This has been, hey, where can we get from here, right? What's the next step? And that's been the delay in building the animal control facility. We hit impasse with the construction company at $1.5 million. We didn't have it, so then we were told to go back. And we narrowed it down. We finally found a contractor. I don't want to put all the onus on him. Mm-hmm. We found a contractor that said, I'll do it for $895,000 so you guys can have a new animal control facility. We got to give him a little grace in this project too, because he's got an overwhelming project that truly, I'm sure today, he don't want to be there either. Because we've have negotiated and built and took every opportunity away from him. And sometimes that's not fair either. So I want to give him some grace in this project as well.
I understand. Okay, well, it's great that we've had this discussion because, when we as commissioners are posed these questions of why isn't it done, now we can say, well, this is the justification for that. because I wasn't aware of that. And, so I can, it's very easy for me to convey that. I just need to know that. So, no, and I'm not taking pot shots, y'all. Please don't assume that I'm doing that. I just needed something to go back to the constituents with to justify where we're at in the project. And if it's because we created delays because we're saving money to get a better finished product, yeah, I'm okay with that. And I assume that most people would be. If it takes you another couple of weeks to get a better product, yeah. Thank you, guys.
Mr. Sykes, did you have some comments?
Yes, ma'am. Just a couple of comments on this. You can see and hear, frankly, the level of not only frustration but the desire to get this building finished by Deputy Administrator Grimes, because a lot of times this falls on Deputy Grimes as the operations person in Putnam County to pull these projects together. And he was given an unbelievable task of trying to get this done. But I think that's the message that needs to get out to those folks that are on Facebook, and is that, not only are we trying to build a new facility, but we're also trying to do it in a manner for which it's the most cost effective. Okay? And sometimes that takes a little more time. And but in all honesty, what staff's hope is, and quite frankly mine as your county administrator, is when we go out for a bid on a realistic project and we get a realistic bid process done and the numbers come back in, that we're given an opportunity to move forward with the bid that comes in, and not put the ownership on your staff to value engineer this thing to a point to where, as you can see, it's taken 6, 8, 9 months longer. But not only is it taking that much time to get the building completed, but it's eating up their time as well. That could be well spent doing something else, all in the attempt to try to save a dollar. And listen, no one wants to be more efficient than your staff here when it comes to taxpayers' dollars. But at some point, we got to be realistic in our expectations, and that's all I'd ask moving forward.
Yep, I understand that completely. And part of that responsibility falls back on this commission, because when did we initially receive the funds for the animal shelter? 10 years?
No.
8 years?
No.
I mean, and I knew we had a delay there too.
No, the only legislative appropriation we received, we completed those costs within the year we received them.
Okay.
So we received $500,000 from the legislature, and that went to site work and infrastructure in order to get us where we could build the facility, because they had to be spent a number of time. The rest of this project was funded from your Better Place funds.
Okay.
And part of the delay was the original location was not suitable. We had to relocate.
Yeah. No, I get that. Thank you, guys.
Commissioner Harvey.
And correct me if I'm wrong, and I appreciate, JR, your candidness, and you're right. But anytime we do a project, and I believe this one was design build, right? It was our first toe in the water on what we call design build, because we had some commissioners that really wanted to explore that area. I would recommend not again, but, I'm just going to say that we tried, and that, did we save some money? Yeah. Did we value engineer it down? Yeah. But even on our other buildings that we take the lowest bid, we just saw that at the landfill where the contractor could not fulfill his responsibility on the low bid, and we had to go in there, and the bonding company settled up with us, and we were able to move forward. So that's how government is. And us in the private sector that owned our own business, we wouldn't put up with that. We would say, I want this done in 2 months, and you gave me a deadline, and why are we, we wouldn't do that. But government. And again, this was a first design build. I don't think I'll ever want to go back down that road again. And I don't mean that bad. Maybe we learn things. Maybe we could be better at it. But I do agree that it was an unrealistic situation. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Go ahead, Julianne.
So just point of clarity here. Design build is not a bad process. Design bid build is not a bad process. But they're intended to be all-inclusive, i.e. we said we want to design build, but then we started tinkering with design build. So don't adversely judge design build process by a project for which we interjected some, frankly, impossible goals to. So we may very well find a great project that would be design build in the future. But we're going to need to go, when the design build firms come back with their proposals, and you're looking at anywhere from $1 million to $2.5 million, that's where we were, then we got to be realistic. If we're going to build what we say we want, this is a spread as to where it's going to be. We took that number and then we chopped it and
what Clay County is building an animal shelter for, it doesn't have any more, excuse me, any more room than what we're going to have. And that's the bottom line. And so 26 times of what we have, what we're putting in this building is what it costs in Clay County, which is unbelievable. And I mean, we didn't have $26 million to put in animal services. We didn't have $2 million to put in animal services. So where I'm at and where my question would be is, what can we do from a board's perspective to help bring this thing to a landing? Is there any suggestions you have? Is there any things you want us to do? I mean, in all seriousness, this is a very serious question. Do you need a little bit more money? I mean, what do you need that would help this? I know once you're in the process, and where are we, like 90% done, probably 80%? I don't know what the number would be.
We're really close. We still have some things that we have to do outside the contract at the building, right? But we got to get the building done so we can do the things on the outside that need to be done. That's where I think we're in the workday scenario, right? We still got fences to put up. That's outside of this contract. We have other things to do because it was easier for us to engage a fencing vendor versus trying to run it through a contractor and pay that extra 20% or whatever the markup is on fencing. So your staff still has a ton of work to do when the contractor's gone. So then we got to start engaging the other folks together. We still got to pave the road going in. We still have to do some of the other stuff that has to be done. But in an attempt to save dollars, we said, well, we'll take that on ourselves outside of the project. So that's why some of this stuff got brought down some. I don't know that it's necessarily a need. The contractor's balancing this job with many others, right? Probably many others where he's actually making money. I think that's probably where we kind of are in a pecking line, is to be completely open and honest.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy's got a payroll to meet that he can't meet at our facility because, in fairness, we beat him down so bad he probably ain't making a lot of money.
Right.
So he's building this thing, sometimes I want to say out of the goodness of his heart. I mean, and how far do I push that guy, right? To push to the point where he wants to walk off the job? Okay. I mean, we can do that. I mean, and I know that's not where we want to head. I want the building done just as much as you do and as much as the citizens do, because I don't like this question format we're in at the moment, because I don't have all those answers.
Right.
We sit down with him or talk to him on a regular basis. We have meetings. He's trying to set milestones. Some of them get met in a pretty reasonable amount of time. Others take a little delay. I think we're really close. I mean, there's some punch list items that still need to be done inside the building. I'll be happy to meet with him again this week and try to get a realistic expectation of when he can be done. And if you guys want to set a deadline for me to tell him it has to be done by X date, I'll be happy to deliver the message.
No, I see your point very much. So I think what we want to know is, number one, how can we help? That's our first question. Is there something that this board can do that would help you in this process? Then I think you have the support of the board.
I agree, and I never thought we didn't have support of the board. I don't know that there's anything I can do inside the contract, right? The only thing inside the contract that makes it better is if we give him more money. The problem is that's not an option.
Right.
Because it was bid through
Right.
procurement, right? So I don't.
I know.
I think the easiest thing to do is moving forward, if we could have a realistic project, and it's nothing against you guys. But when something comes in at $1.5 million to try to take it and make it at a 50%, that's really just, let's not do it, right? From your staff perspective. Let's not do it again.
Yeah.
Because that's truly where we are today, is from your staff's perspective, is a 50% project that you want 100% results on, that a following county did it for 26 times the amount.
Yep.
That's, at some point, this thing becomes unrealistic,
Yeah.
right? And that's kind of where we are today, is the unrealistic approach to a finish line. Because it'd be just as easy for that guy to say today, right? But we're trying to help him get to a finish line. And it takes day in and day out. He can only put so much cost on that job right now. And I think that's where it is. I mean, we're down to we're purchasing the cabinets, right? When we're purchasing cabinets, we're getting really, really, really close to the final touches of this building. The electrical is completed. I know they're waiting on an inspection so they can get the permanent power turned on to the facilities. So we are getting really, really close with that portion of it. But then we still got probably a little while, some site work type stuff. I'm not saying we can't move some of the facilities out there, but we still have some site work improvement that we need to do that is outside of that contract.
Right. Okay. Well, and one of the things I know, what does it hold, like 90, 88? And we already know that on day one, we're going to be over capacity because we stay over capacity, and it's not for lack of adoption events. It's not for lack of staff doing their best to get animals out. So can we, when we're looking at this, and if we have to bid it out separately, which I know we would, but or unless we do it in-house, I'd like to see some runs with dog houses or some kind of cover so that you could put, I've seen that at other facilities. So besides what you have inside the building, you also have areas where there's fencing and areas that they could be housed outside. If you go down to, I went down and visited Ark Rescue down in Crescent City. So they have, chain link fence areas, and in that they have an area for the dogs to get out of the weather. They have water, food, all of the things. So I would like to see us, if we have to have more than 88 animals, and I know you can share some kennels can be shared. I know that. I don't want us to be, in day one, putting animals inside the office like we're having to now. And so I'd like to have a solution to that as well. Now, I understand that we couldn't build it big enough, right? We could put it for 500 dogs, and we'd probably have 500 dogs in it. That's the reality. But at the same time, if we're creating a good environment for our staff to work in, then it's hard for me to say it's okay for you to have three dogs in your office, and then 3 dogs in the next office, and 4 dogs down in the corner of the building. Are there certain circumstances? Yeah, you might have a dog who's pregnant and they're watching it, and those kind of things, or one's sick and so they have it closer so they can watch it. But the reality is, I don't think we should have that many dogs in the office space.
So our current design and plan operationally is that the dogs will not be housed inside the office. We can look at any number of kennels, outdoor kennels, in addition to the 88 space that you desire. Please keep in mind that all 88 of those animals in a kennel also need play yard and exercise space
Right.
during the day.
Right.
So at some point, what we currently have designed, or will be at the end of the day, is a number of different play yards with play features so that those animals can get exercise for healthy emotional well-being, physical needs.
Right.
So the more animals we add, the more play space and opportunity we have to also provide. We can add as many and as much as you want or you have room and budget for.
Okay. Go ahead.
No, we'll talk about
Okay.
it later. Yep.
All right.
But,
Well, is there any other discussions regarding animal services?
No, I just, even though this discussion was a little tense, I think it needed to happen. And, the implementation of this was before you got the 3 new commissioners that you have, and I appreciate where you're at. I've had to work with contractors, and, a lot of what we did was low bid, and then you had to value engineer it, and then, the end user would not be satisfied with the project or the deadline. So I just want to reiterate that we are here to help, and, especially myself, and I know that the rest of the commission, I think they feel that way now. We recognize the problems here, and we definitely respect your opinion and look for direction on future
Yeah.
projects.
We really do appreciate the hard work
Yeah.
because basically you're working as a project manager.
You are, amongst
And-
all the other hats you wear around here.
Yeah, right.
So,
So we appreciate that.
yes.
Finishing my comments, impact fees, I want to say thank you to the board for listening today and moving it forward to a workshop. Since I've been here, I've always said that, it shouldn't be on the backs of our existing taxpayers to pay for new growth. And that's where I stand. So having growth, paying for growth makes completely sense to me. And I'm hoping that as we move forward, we'll see some big differences in how we handle that going forward. And I just want to remind everybody that we have a 1:30 workshop today in this board room. With that, is there anything else to come before the board? All right, this meeting's adjourned.